Do 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 do. Scoop scoop scoopy doop, skadoopy doopy poopy poopy poop boop, loppy doopy doopy doop, scoobly doop doop, scoobly doop doop, scoobly doop doop, skadoopy doop, skadoopy doop. Bum 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 bumpa-dum bumpity-bum bum bumpity-bum bum bum ba-da-ba. Hey, oomph. Ba-da-ba-da-boo-dee-bee-da-ba-da-boo, bee-da-ba-da-boo. Hey, wait. Oh, I see. Why is it not doing that? That's not it. Scoobily-doo, scoobily-doo, scoop, scoop, scoobily, scoobily-doo. That's not what I wanted. Where is my oversight committee? Yeah. Let's hit the oversight committee. Why is that not picking that up? Okay, well. Okay, I'm going to have to turn my sound off. Okay. Hi, good morning. Oh my gosh, good morning. Good morning, good morning. I'm trying to make this work. Hold on just a moment. Why did it show the right screen? Okay, I know what to do. I know what to do. Boop. 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 Wow, it's just really... Oh, here we go. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ on a cracker. Anyway, good morning. Happy Wednesday. Badger. Is J-Rance really here? She might have been in earlier. Because those, some of those comments were before. And Oomph's here. Do 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 do. How's everybody's Wednesday? I'm gonna I don't know what I'm gonna do after this. I don't know. What are you guys going to do after this? I know some of you are working. But... There was a dinosaur at Trump's thing in New York yesterday. Does anyone have a picture of that? I think that's amazing. J-Rance saving you on Twitter again. J-Rance is a warrior on that fucking app. She is an absolute warrior. So, yeah, I understand that. She saves me every day. She goes where people don't want to go. Easily distracted. You're here. Cheers. Cheers. But yeah. Oh, shit. God, I'm spilling everything today. I'm knocking everything over. I'm spilling every possible thing. J-Rance almost an hour ago, yeah. So I think people came in early, made a couple comments, and then, yeah. But she said there was a dinosaur at the trial. Or Caroline said there was a dinosaur at the trial. That's amazing. I love it. I want to see dinos everywhere. Dinos across the country, fighting for the right thing. Wouldn't that be amazing? That's my hobby. Yeah, I have hobbies too. I wonder what's going to happen with this meeting. Because, whoopsie, that's not what I want to do. Oh, here we go. Now, at least they let me make the screen bigger, so that's a step in the right direction. Oh, here we go. Uh-oh, I can't hear it.
Okay, subcommittee on oversight will come.
Oh, shit. Can you guys hear it?
The chair may declare a recess at any time. Also, without objection, the meeting record will remain open for 5 legislative days, so members may submit
any materials they wish to be included.
I can't hear it in my earphones.
Thank you, Ranking Member Torres, members of the subcommittee, and our courageous whistleblowers for joining us for today's.
Can you guys hear the hearing?
These whistleblowers are coming forward today to share for the first time under oath their first-hand account related to National Guard deployment on January 6th. None of today's whistleblowers were interviewed
I'm not going to touch it
by the
then.
Department of Defense Inspector General or the Select Committee. January 6, 2021 highlighted a culmination of failures at many levels. For today's hearing, we're examining the Department of Defense and the D.C. National Guard's response to the violent breach of the Capitol. So we'll get into it. I'd like to play a brief video about the time frame of the delay.
Is this the video we received just this morning? Last night, okay.
Okay, is that better? We'll see. Something's wrong. Maybe I put it in the wrong. Okay, good. This is going to be priceless. They were waiting. They were just waiting.
Minority for their indulgence in playing the video. I think it's important to kind of set the stage of just how important 3 hours and 19 minutes can be on a day like that. At a previous hearing, we heard testimony from former U.S. Capitol Police Chief Stephen Sund about the former
Yes, he is,
senior in the
Max.
congressional leadership
Good morning.
the U.S. Capitol Police's request for assistance. On January 6, 2021, at 1:49 p.m., the D.C. National Guard received the first request for immediate assistance from the U.S. Capitol Police as protesters started to gather and force their way into the Capitol complex. However, at this time, the Capitol Police Board had not officially approved the request. At roughly 2:12 p.m., protesters breached the Capitol and began assaulting police officers. Staffers and members of Congress were ordered to evacuate, including myself and others that are here today. Capitol Police attempted to secure members and clear the Capitol, but were quickly outnumbered. There have been many testimonies of that day, but one thing is clear. The U.S. Capitol Police requested and needed urgent assistance from anyone who would answer the call, including the Metropolitan Police Department and various federal law enforcement entities and the D.C. National Guard. However, there was a delay deploying the National Guard for over 3 hours.
There we go.
Almost an
I
hour
fucked
after
up.
the
I'm
Capitol
sorry.
was breached at 3:04 p.m., the acting Secretary of Defense, Christopher Miller, approved the D.C. National Guard to deploy to the Capitol. Just a brief history lesson for those who do not know.
It was open,
Executive
and I was in the
Order
wrong port.
11485 delegates
I put
oversight
my
of the D.C.
plug in the
National
wrong
Guard to
port.
the Department of Defense. A 1969 memo further designates this authority specifically to the Secretary of Army. On January 6, 2021, the commanding general of the D.C. National Guard, William Walker, reported directly to the Secretary of the Army, Ryan
Finally
McCarthy.
fixed. Hi, Kathy.
The D.C. National Guard was at the Armory, 1.2 miles away from the Capitol, waiting for authorization to deploy to assist civil authorities and quell the riot. However, the D.C. National Guard didn't arrive at the Capitol until almost 6 p.m.
Yay.
That's 3 hours and 19 minutes of delay. During those hours, chaos engulfed members of Congress, law enforcement officers, reporters, staffers, and citizens. During those hours, necessary help from the D.C. National Guard was not on the way. Our goal today is to get to the bottom
Good morning,
as to why.
Paulina.
It took too long for the
That's
D.C.
what he
National
said.
Guard to arrive at the Capitol. The 113th Wing Capitol Guardians have a proud history of protecting our nation's Capitol and serving our nation's leadership. Nevertheless, the New Jersey State Police from nearly 150 miles away responded.
Oh, baby,
to the
we got
Capitol
this
before
TikTok.
the
Oh, we know what the
National Guard.
TikTok is on this, love.
Additionally,
You
the Pentagon
can
knew that
spin
there
it
was a
any way you
threat to
want.
governmental operations because by 3:37 p.m., the Pentagon sent its own security forces to guard the homes of defense leaders. At 3:37 p.m., no D.C. National Guard forces were on the way to the Capitol. Throughout my subcommittee's extensive investigation into the events of January 6 and the Select Committee on January 6, we have uncovered concerning inconsistencies regarding the mobilization of the D.C. National Guard. Through phone records, firsthand accounts, sworn testimonies, and after-action reports we have gathered, there appears to have been a significant delay at the Department of Defense in either deploying the National Guard or communicating the order of.
Oh no, they're throwing the
Either way,
Department of
purpose
Defense
this
under the
hearing
bus
is
here,
to hear
Max.
the DC National
Right?
Guard
This is
story
going to be it's going to
about the
be
3 hours
Charles
and
Flynn's
19
fault.
minutes. On November 16, 2021, the Department of Defense Inspector General released a report reviewing their role in the response to January 6, which claimed that the D.C. National Guard was deployed to the Capitol as quickly as possible. However, the report also credited significant delays in deployment to D.C. National Guard, Commanding General Major General William Walker neglecting to mobilize after receiving orders. Specifically, the DoDIG report concludes that the leader of the National Guard response, Major General Walker, received direction from the Secretary of the Army, Ryan McCarthy, to deploy the D.C. National Guard to the Capitol twice, once at 4:35 p.m. and again at 5 p.m. Major General Walker denies that either of these calls took place. Despite the many inconsistencies and contradictions of the Department of Defense's responsibility that day, the Select Committee on January 6 ignored these discrepancies despite them being shared privately by their own staff and barreled forward with the DoD's side of the story. Following the release of the DoDIG report, multiple whistleblowers from the D.C. National Guard who were present with Major General Walker have come forward to share their experiences. According to their testimony, hours of vital response time were missed because senior Army officials had personal concerns regarding military presence at the U.S. Capitol.
I would think it's the
Today, we
pumpkin.
have the
I mean, come on
responsibility
now,
of
Badger.
recognizing these D.C. National Guardsmen, listening to their testimony, and honoring their patriotism. These brave men who showed up to defend
Yep,
the Capitol
he's
and
gonna
were discarded
blame
and ignored when
everybody.
they tried to come forward. I reached out to the DoDIG regarding concerns with their report and contradictory narratives. For nearly 2 months, I have not received any answers. Today, we will learn more about what happened that day regarding the delay. We'll hear a side of the story
I
that
can't
has
wait.
been ignored for too long. Most importantly, today, we will look into the future and make sure that our Capitol,
I don't know if
our
he really
Capitol
knows how
guardians,
this all
and
leads
our law
back,
enforcement
'cause
partners
it
are more
does.
prepared today than they were 3 years ago.
Who in the world
We're
wants
only
him
able
to do
conduct
this?
this oversight because whistleblowers have come forward to share their stories. I encourage anyone to reach out to the subcommittee as our investigation continues.
Come forward. The guy
I now
wrote his
recognize
report in
Ranking
December of
Member Torres for 5
2021.
minutes for the purpose of providing
The guy
answers.
wrote his report in
Thank you,
2021.
Chairman, and thank you to our witnesses for being here today and for your service to our nation, particularly on January 6th. You sacrificed your time to protect us, and we owe you a debt of gratitude. We are here today discussing the delayed National Guard response to the Capitol for one reason, and one reason only. Donald Trump dispatched an armed mob to try to overturn the election he knew he lost.
I'm not sure. I guess we're going to find out. I'm
3
curious.
hours and 19 minutes as that violent mob assaulted law enforcement and
I think it is.
for members of Congress and the vice president who they were trying to hang. The National Guard was forced to wait and wait and wait. All because of the chaos at the Pentagon caused by the commander-in-chief and the fear that he would involve the military in domestic political affairs, a big no-no we teach worldwide to emerging countries. This was a commander-in-chief who, as the riot unfolded,
Well,
didn't
you
call
should have
his
given the
acting
emerging
Secretary of
country
Defense
training
or
then.
Secretary of the Army to ask why the National Guard was missing. Where were they? A commander-in-chief who, after he learned someone was shot, didn't care. He didn't call the National Guard directly. A
He also never
commander-in-chief
pardoned
whose
the
aides
rioters
and family
on the
partied
7th,
and danced
8th,
as the
the
mob
9th,
prepared
10th,
to overturn
all the way through the
Capitol.
20th.
A
Never pardoned one of them.
who sat in his dining room watching it all unfold on TV like it was an action movie with an ending favorable to him. How did we get here? Let me tell you. In response to the June 2020 demonstrations responding to the murder of George Floyd, President Trump said he would, quote, deploy the United States military, end quote, to put down the protest, and even asked Secretary of Defense Mark Esper why the military couldn't just, quote, shoot the protesters in the legs or something, end quote. Secretary Esper found the president's comments so disturbing, he held a press conference saying he opposed invoking the Insurrection Act. Then, in December, as Trump continued to spread conspiracy theories supported by members of this Congress sitting here today about the election being stolen, talk of invoking the Insurrection Act reached a boiling point. It got so bad that his own Secretary of the Army and the Army Chief of Staff, a 4-star general, issue a joint statement saying, quote, there is no role for the U.S. military in determining the outcome of an American election, end quote. And as our top military leaders worry the president will declare martial law, the rest of the national security apparatus was in total disarray. People were getting fired or resigning, left and right. Everyone remembers that, right? And with only 71 days left in his term, Trump terminated the Secretary of Defense and replaced him with an acting Secretary of Defense who was completely over his head. Contrary to attempts to rewrite history, the January 6th Select Committee conducted more than 24 interviews and reviewed over 37,000 pages of documents related to the National Guard and dedicated 46 pages of its final report to this issue. The Select Committee found that the chaos led to an ill-equipped acting Secretary of Defense issuing an unclear order to the Secretary of the Army, an order so unclear that it was interpreted differently by the acting Secretary of Defense, the Army Chief of Staff, and the Secretary of the Army. 3 people, 3 different interpretations. It's all there in the Select Committee's final report and the dozens of relevant transcripts available online. Adding to the chaos, these top Army officials exercised extreme caution and imposed unprecedented restrictions on when and how to deploy the Guard on January 6th. This was a direct result of the president's decision to involve the military in domestic affairs. To our witnesses, I am so sorry. I am so sorry that Trump's Defense Department and Army leadership failed you and they failed us on January 6th. You should never have been forced to sit on your hands while we were lying on our stomachs, planning to use a pen
Why does everyone have a
in
cough?
our purses as a weapon to defend ourselves against the mob that was sent here to kill us by the President of the United States of America.
Go girl.
We were preparing to die. I yield back.
The gentlelady yields. Chair now recognizes the full committee ranking member, Mr. Morelli, for 5 minutes for the purpose of making an opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our witnesses for your careers of distinguished service. The D.C. National Guardsmen are known as the Capitol Guardians, and we as members are only able to do our jobs in the days and months that followed January 6th because you stood guard over us as you did, and for that and for all of your long service, we owe you an enormous debt of gratitude, so thank you. I want to be clear, we're here today for a single reason. An unpatriotic, cynical, power-hungry man incited a deadly insurrection as part of his months-long effort to overturn a free and fair American election. We're here because of his lies about the 2020 election. It's hard to believe, It's frankly even hard to say.
Going hard.
But it doesn't make it any less true. Yet many cannot bring themselves to acknowledge it, many in this room. As a result, we're here because of the majority's 15-month quixotic mission to find malfeasance from the January 6th Select Committee who investigated the insurrection where no malfeasance exists. And frankly, just as a question of jurisdiction should be raised, if this hearing is about the chain of command and or communication between the various elements of the defense apparatus of the United States, then it falls to the House Armed Services Committee to do that investigation. They should be doing it, I do agree, but this is clearly not the venue for this to happen. I do want to address something at the outset. There is a notion that persists that President Trump ordered or pushed for 10,000 National Guard troops ahead of January 6th. It's been debunked repeatedly, and it's also a red herring, and here's why. As the chair has stated, a 1969 executive order delegated authority of the D.C. National Guard to the Secretary of Defense, who in turn delegated that authority to the Secretary of the Army. But the President of the United States ultimately sits atop the chain of command. What he did with the National Guard before January 6th doesn't matter compared to his actions, or I should say inactions, on the 6th of January itself. And what he never did on the 6th was call the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of the Army, or the D.C. National Guard itself to find out why they were not on the scene or to order them to the Capitol for that 3-hour and 19-minute delay. So I want to quickly dispense with the claim once and for all that he'd ordered 10,000 troops, as he has said. Acting Secretary of Defense Christopher Miller was asked the following questions and provided the following answers under penalty of perjury. First question, the 10,000 troops, did you take that as a request for you or an order for you to deploy 10,000 troops? His answer, and I quote, no, absolutely not. I interpret it as a bit of presidential banner or President Trump banner that you're all familiar with, and in no way, shape, or form did I interpret that as an order or direction. He was also asked, in February of 2021, Mark Meadows said on Fox News that, quote, even in January, that was a given as many as 10,000 National Guard troops were told to be on the ready by the Secretary of Defense. Is there any accuracy to that statement? Mr. Meadows' answer, not from my perspective. I was never given any direction or order or knew of any plans of that nature. So no, there was obviously we had plans for activating more folks, but that was not anything more than contingency planning. And then a few questions later. To be crystal clear, the question was, there was no direct order from President Trump to put 10,000 troops to be on the ready for January 6th. Is that correct? His answer, quote, that's correct. There was no direct order. There was no order from the President. I think that's all you need to know. Under oath, the Secretary of Defense said it never happened. Here's the bottom line. The President of the United States manipulated his followers into believing the election was stolen from him, summoned an armed mob to Washington, and then unleashed them on the United States Capitol, and then did absolutely nothing to stop what unfolded. People died. We almost lost our democracy. We could have 100 hearings to deflect blame, but the facts are not going to change. President Truman famously had a sign on his desk that said, the buck stops here. President Trump's sign, on the other hand, would read, the buck stops anywhere but here. He lit the fire, he fanned the flames, the Defense Department delayed the troops, and he wants everyone else to take the blame. Frankly, I find it pathetic. I agree with Senator Mitch McConnell, who said former President Trump's actions preceding the riot were a disgraceful dereliction of duty. Former Speaker Kevin McCarthy said Trump bears responsibility for his actions, no ifs, ands, or buts. And I agree with Senator Lindsey Graham, who said, all I can say is count me out. Enough is enough. I only wish that they and the rest of the Republican Party agreed with their prior versions of themselves. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
The gentleman yields. Just for the record, this hearing is not being done in isolation. It has been carefully coordinated with the House Armed Services Committee, and not only has their blessing, but a bipartisan blessing to hold this hearing. Also, without objection, I'd like to submit for the record Secretary Miller's transcribed interview under oath to the Select Committee on January 6th. two excerpts. So, Mr. Miller, did you try to reach, well, let me back up. On January 3rd, did you have, or even prior, did you have all the authorities needed in terms of activating, deploying the D.C. National Guard?
How drugged is Chris Miller?
And he said, yes, I felt I did. Did you need any additional authorities, or was there a discussion about your authorities in any way at the January 3rd meeting? No, I didn't. I felt like I had all the authorities I needed and did not need to discuss anything with the president regarding authorities. Another question. So, Mr. Miller, did you try to reach President Trump that day? I did not. Why not? I had all the authorities I needed to perform my duties, responsibilities that day.
This is purely just for
Didn't
Trump.
need any other guidance from the president. I now recognize the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Griffith, for 5 minutes for an opening statement.
And let me start, Mr. Chairman, by submitting for the record the Army timeline of events from December 31st, 2020 through January 7, 2021. That report dated January 7, 2021.
Without objection.
That's what I told you. They're going to throw
Some of the comments
Chris
this morning
and
interested
Charles
me,
Flynn under the fucking bus.
Because I too was on the floor that day, and I find it interesting because
Or
there's an
Charles Flynn is in on it. It's going to help throw Chris Miller over the
has
bus,
to
under the
call
bus,
everybody
or over
who's
the
in
bus.
chain of command to make sure his orders are followed.
That would damage
It is
him.
my understanding, and I believe that the evidence today will show from these gentlemen who have given their time and are whistleblowers, meaning they're coming forward with something that other people may not want to have heard, that we will discover through their testimony that in fact the president had given the instruction, perhaps misunderstood on January 3rd, but certainly on January 6th, prior to that instruction being relayed by his officers in accordance with the general military procedure to the D.C. National Guard. And that's a big part of what this hearing will be about today. And I think it's important that we keep that in mind. Further, we've heard a lot about the attempts to rewrite history because the January 6th committee is allegedly supposed to have already done all of this. But we will hear, I believe, from these gentlemen today that they were not talked to by the January 6th commission. And further,
Well, Chris Miller was, honey.
will forever in history be tainted because it was the first time in history, in an attempt to write the history after the fact, that both sides, both major parties in this
They were represented.
political
Calm down.
situation that
Calm
we
down, Pokey.
have found ourselves in for the last 175, 200 years, both were not invited to participate in an equal manner. That the Republican
That's not true.
representatives who
It's
were
not
supposed
true.
to be
It's
on that,
patently
who was
false.
originally set up, were supposed to be a part of the January 6th committee, were not allowed to be present. They were not allowed to cross-examine witnesses. They were not allowed to ask for witnesses like these four brave gentlemen who are here with us today. They weren't allowed to call those witnesses to appear in front of the January 6th committee. So while the January 6th committee may have found some very interesting information, they intentionally chose
I think that's
not
the only
tell
way
the
to write
truth, the
history,
whole
right?
truth,
Like
and
after the
nothing but
fact.
the truth.
Hence,
At the very best, it can
history.
be described as a partial attempt to put forward facts that favored their side of the narrative and not to get to all the facts. And as Jack Webb and his famous character from Dragnet used to say, the facts. We just want the facts, ma'am.
Oh,
That's what we're here to
no,
do
you
today,
don't. But wait
is to
till
try
you
to
get
make sure
them.
that we're getting
They're
to
gonna
the
blow your
facts,
mind.
not the political rhetoric, not the emotions per se, but the facts from four brave gentlemen who serve our nation and have served our nation, who have come forward.
Boop, boop, boop,
I don't know any of these
boop,
gentlemen.
boop,
I don't believe any of them has a political axe to grind. They are
boop,
here
boop, 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 boop,
just to deliver the facts. I yield back.
boop, boop, boop,
The gentleman
boop,
yields.
boop,
Without
boop.
objection, all other members' opening statements will be made part of the hearing record if they are submitted to the committee clerk by 5 p.m. today.
Reminds me of
Pursuant
that
to
Eve
paragraph
song,
8 of
or
Committee
the
Rule
Eve and
6,
Gwen
the witnesses
Stefani.
will please stand
And
and raise your
you'll
right
blow
hand.
your mind.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm
Is
that
that
the
Kash
testimony
Patel?
you're about to give
I
is
can't
the
even
truth,
see.
the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Let
Button
the
your
record show the
jacket,
witnesses have
you
answered in the
motherfucker.
affirmative, and you may be seated. I will now introduce each of our witnesses. Our first witness is Command Sergeant Major Michael Brooks. Command Sergeant Major Brooks' military career spanned 29 years with combat tours in Iraq.
Looks like
Command Master Sergeant Brooks
crazy
spent
kinda
the
guy,
end of
sorry.
his career in the D.C. National Guard, including at the Joint Task Force D.C. Mr. Brooks now works at a company that seeks to protect national and economic security from undue foreign influence.
I mean, this
On
just
January
shows how
6,
dumb they are,
2021,
right?
Mr. Brooks was a senior
No, it's
enlisted
not cash.
advisor to
Okay.
Major General William Walker and advised on all enlisted matters.
Is William
Next
Walker
witness
there?
is Colonel Earl Matthews, a decorated military veteran with a long and accomplished career in government and the private sector. Colonel Matthews served as Deputy Assistant to the President and Senior Director for Defense Policy and Strategy on the National Security Council staff. He also served as the Army's Acting General Counsel and Principal Deputy General Counsel, as well as the Deputy Legal Counsel to the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. On January 6, 2021, Colonel Matthews was the Chief Legal Advisor to Major General William Walker and was with him all day. Our next witness is Brigadier General Aaron Dean, with a similarly accomplished career in military service. Brigadier General Dean served in Operation Desert Storm and a combat tour in Iraq.
Oh, look,
He also
there's
served in the
Nikki.
DC National Guard
Nikki
for over
and
35
Nicole
years,
Reffitt.
exemplifying what it means to be in the
Mickey.
capital.
I call her Nikki. Mickey Whithoff,
January
which is
6,
Ashley
2021,
Babbitt's mom, is the
General
gray-haired
Dean
lady
served
over
as
his
Major General Walker's Adjutant
whatchamacallit
General and
shoulder,
Principal Advisor.
right shoulder, and
Final
over his left
witness
shoulder is
Captain
Nicole Reffitt, which is
Timothy
Guy
Nick,
Reffitt's
an
wife.
active duty service
That's
member in the Florida
well,
National
that's
Guard.
Tammy right
Captain
there.
Nick has
I don't know what
experience in law
Tammy's story
enforcement,
is because I
including
stopped
as a
watching
current
the
officer
corner
in the US
after.
Secret
She's part of the
Service.
Freedom Corner or
Captain Nick
whatever
previously served in the
bullshit
DC
that stand
National
outside
Guard
the
Public Affairs
DC jail
Department.
with Mickey
On January
Whithoff
6, 2021,
as
Captain
their
Nick was
grift.
the aide-de-camp to Major General William Walker and took detailed notes of actions of Major General Walker on that day. Thank you, gentlemen, for your service to our
Wait, I
country
think
and
Tammy's
your strength and
married to a
courage to come forward
J6er,
and
the
share
guy who's a
your
Nazi,
accounting
who has
event
Nazi
on January
tattoos.
6,
That's a
2021.
rumor. I
We
mean,
all
not a
look
rumor.
forward to
I'm
your
I'm
testimony.
guessing. I'm trying to pick
As a
back in my
reminder, we have
memory,
read your
so
written statement,
may or
and
may not be
they will appear in
accurate,
full
but I
in the
think it's
hearing
true.
record. Under Committee Rule 9, you are to limit your oral presentation to a brief summary of your written statement, unless I extend the time period in consultation with Ranking Member Torres.
I only
Please
saw
remember to turn on your
Nicole,
microphone
Mickey, and
using the button in front of
I
you
think
so that
Tammy.
members can hear you. When you begin to speak, the light on the timer in front of you will turn green. After 4 minutes, the light will turn yellow. When the red light comes on, your 5 minutes has expired, and we
Is
just
Jerkle
ask
a
that
new
you please
character you
wrap up
guys
your
have over
comments at
there?
that moment. I now recognize Command Sergeant Major Michael Brooks for 5 minutes.
okay, yeah, that's what I thought. She had the Nazi tattoo guy.
Good morning, Chairman Loudermilk, Ranking Member Torres, and members of the subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I am Command Sergeant Major retired Michael F. Brooks. I am the former Command Senior Enlisted
Mr.
Leader.
Brooks, I'm sorry to interrupt. Could you pull the microphone a little closer to you? People in the audience are having a hard time hearing. I apologize for that. You can start over, and we'll reset your time.
Thank you. Is that better? Yes, sir. Good morning, Chairman Loudermilk, Ranking Member Torres, and members of the subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I am Command Sergeant Major retired Michael F. Brooks. I am the former Command Senior Enlisted Leader of the District of Columbia National Guard, the Capitol Guardians. I retired on March 1st of 2023 with 29 years of active federal service in the Army and the Army National Guard. While I am no longer in service, I continue defense of our great nation as a compliance and investigation specialist with the Compliance and Adjudication Division of the Office of Information and Communications Technology and Services of the Bureau of Industry and Security. I served as the Command Senior Enlisted Leader of the DC National Guard from December
He had a little too much
2017 to December of 2022.
Coors Light
As
at
most
the
senior
hotel
non-commissioned
bar
officer of the
last night.
organization, I reported directly to Commanding General, and from 2017 until his retirement and selection as the 38th Sergeant at Arms for the House of Representatives, my commander was Major General William J. Walker. As his senior enlisted advisor, I reported only to him, and I was with him throughout the days before, the day of, and the subsequent weeks and months that followed the events of January 6, 2021. So imagine my surprise when the DODIG released their report without once interviewing myself or other critically significant DC National Guard members with firsthand knowledge of what occurred that fateful day. Not anonymous witnesses or anonymous officials, but senior ranking military members that were in the room, on the calls, and on the secure video teleconference. I'm not here to disparage the Army that I love and served for nearly 3 decades, but to correct the record and speak for the hundreds of enlisted soldiers and airmen of the D.C. National Guard who have always answered the call to serve without political bias or prejudice, who have always faithfully fulfilled their oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Those Capitol Guardians who continue to do so even today after being degraded by senior officials of the Army and the Army staff in their inaccurate and biased report. I believe those who steered the narrative of the DODIG report did so not for historical documentation or to enhance future military response capability, but to protect and advance individuals who sought to shield themselves from responsibility, to overly enhance their role and perceived significance in a critical moment in the history of our nation's democracy. In truth, their actions, no matter how innocent they believe them to be, have led to an awful mark on our military and shown an incredible lack of respect for the service of the men and women who serve in the D.C. National Guard before, during, and after January 6th of 2021. Trust in our Army's most senior leadership was lost. Their actions and comments have highlighted the Army staff and the Secretary of the Army's lack of knowledge and understanding of the D.C. National Guard, its authorities, and capabilities. Prior to the protests following the murder of George Floyd in May of 2020, I do not believe any of them understood just how unique the D.C. National Guard is, and the responsibility that is delegated from the President to the Secretary of Defense and further delegated to the Secretary of the Army. I believe it is this lack of understanding that led to the significant delays in the military response on January 6th. I will not sit here today and say if we had been given authority to immediately respond when Chief Sun, the Chief of the Capitol Police, made that first frantic call for support at 1:49 p.m., that we would have prevented the breach of the Capitol. What I can tell you with absolute certainty is that we had a force equipped and ready to respond, and that despite the inaccuracies of the DODIG report, we had a plan and would have liked the opportunity to try. Instead, we waited for hours, less than 2 miles east of the Capitol, knowing our Capitol had been breached and not understanding why we had not received the authorization to respond. I cannot tell you the number of times someone has asked me, where were you? Where was the National Guard? Or how can you call yourselves Capitol Guardians? There is no easy response to those questions, and the truth is, we were there and we were ready. We just weren't authorized to respond, and that is difficult to explain. The soldiers and airmen of the D.C. National Guard deserve better. They deserve to be recognized for their sacrifices over a prolonged period of civil unrest from May of 2020 to May of 2021. I look forward to your questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant Major. I now recognize Colonel Earl Matthews.
I love his uplighting.
Chairman Loudermilk, Ranking Member Torres, members of the subcommittee, good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. My name is Earl Matthews, and I'm a colonel in the United States Army Reserve. I'm in the 25th year of my military service. I love our Army, and I'm committed to our Army values. I'm here today because two senior general officers of the United States Army, General Charles A. Flynn and Lieutenant General Walter E. Pyatt, have acted contrary to those values. Generals Pyatt and Flynn have lied to Congress, federal investigators, and to the American people about why it took so long for the District of
Flynn and Miller
to deploy to the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. Their distortions contributed.
This is Kash Patel's doing, I bet.
A deeply and fundamentally flawed Department of Defense Inspector General investigation into deficiencies in other official inquiries. On January 6, 2021,
Sit down! Are you kidding me right now?
Leading up to,
what is happening right now?
Riot,
what is happening?
Which was engulfing the Capitol.
Is somebody doing that on purpose? What the fuck just happened? He said Piat. Yeah, no, I know.
Personal knowledge having
I'm
interacted
telling
with them
you,
on January
Chris Miller's going to
6th,
figure into this somehow because he's a dumb cow.
Additionally, some senior officials within the Department of the Army and the Department of Defense have sought to protect or to promote Generals Flynn and Pyatt. These senior civilian officials have excused, condoned, or overlooked the misconduct of these officers. As a former acting general counsel of the Department of the Army and its chief legal officer,
Well, I mean, he can't be happy, right? Like, Mike has to be hearing this and going, wait, what?
I'm glad the subcommittee has an open mind and is committed to the dogged search for the truth. In my formal statement,
I guess in that case, it
provided
can't
to
be
the committee
cash.
In advance of today's hearing, I detailed General Pyatt's
Somebody's
and General
doing
Flynn's
this.
intentional misrepresentations to the Congress and to federal investigators. During today's hearing, I hope to discuss with you how they lied, where they lied, and in my opinion, why they lied. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Colonel Matthews. I now recognize Brigadier General Aaron Dean for 5 minutes.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member, members of the subcommittee. Good morning, I'm Brigadier General, retired Aaron Dean. Let history record this moment as I, in my capacity as the second in command of the District of Columbia National Guard, entrusted with the sacred duty to advise and assist the commanding general on matters of operational significance concerning the deployment of the District of Columbia National Guard on January 6, 2021. Address the grave assertions and inaccuracies contained in the Inspector General's report, DOD IG 2022-039. I believe it is my duty and moral obligation to stand before you today and illuminate the truth. I stand resolute, bearing witness to the unwavering readiness and unparalleled dedication of the service members of the District of Columbia National Guard. I will answer questions honestly, as witnessed through the lens of my 34-year career in the District of Columbia National Guard. I rebuff in the strongest terms the insidious insinuation that the District of Columbia National Guard faltered in its duty, that it languished in apathy or incompetence when called upon to safeguard the sanctum of democracy.
You know, it's
Today, I will
funny.
tell the
I
truth to
never
the best of
once
my
thought that.
recollection,
I never once
unblemished
thought
by falsehoods,
that.
and
Ever.
in doing so, exonerate the honor of the brave
I
soldiers
never
and
once
airmen
thought that.
who stood unwavering in the defense of our nation. May my testimony serve as a testament to the indomitable spirit of those who answered the call of duty on that historic day. Thank you.
Thank you, General Dean. Now recognize Captain Timothy Nick for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman and members of the subcommittee, my name is Timothy
It
Nick.
is some
and I'm a
weird
captain in
shit.
the Army National Guard. I'm here today to aid the
Not
subcommittee in
anymore.
resolving factual errors in the official record of what happened on January 6, 2021, specifically regarding the alleged District of Columbia National Guard delayed response caused by critical presidentially appointed, Senate-confirmed Pentagon senior officials. I was concerned by the events that unfolded
don't
that day on
understand.
the United States Capitol.
Thanks,
As a federal
Gal.
officer
Gal
of the
has a
United States
link
Secret
on Earl
Service and a
Matthews.
former state trooper with the Florida Highway Patrol. My heart goes out to all law enforcement officers, sisters and brothers that held the line that day to restore public order to the chaos. I'm here today with my counsels, Lachlan McKillen and Dan Meyer of law firm Tully Rickney. The firm has advised me, beginning with my role as a confidential source to the Select Committee to investigate the January 6 attack on the United States Capitol. When my confidentiality was breached, it was Dan who intervened to ensure I was protected as a military whistleblower. First, I want to explain my role on January 6. I was assigned as aide-de-camp, the personal assistant to Major General William Walker, the commanding general of D.C. National Guard. It was my only second day on the job. Please focus on alleged facts about
Why isn't
in the
Walker
November
there?
16, 2021, Department of Defense Inspector General's multidisciplinary review into the D.C. National Guard response and Department of Defense's role that day. I can say unequivocally that the Inspector General's review is riddled with inaccuracies, misstatements, and perhaps false flags and narratives regarding how critical Pentagon
Unfortunately, it's
senior
as high as
officials
it'll
responded
go.
when our republic was under great stress. For instance, during a conference call at 2:31 p.m. with members of United States Army, U.S. Capitol Police, Metropolitan Police Department, District of Columbia Government, and U.S. Secret Service Uniform Division, the U.S. Army's Lieutenant General Walter Pyatt Director of Army Staff, and the Army's Lieutenant General Charles Flynn, Director of Chief of Staff of Operations, were on the call. Also was Colonel John Lubis, Executive Officer to the Secretary of the Army. The Army falsely denied that General Flynn was ever on the call. This is false and material on its face. Lieutenant Flynn was on the call and even participated in discussions. The Defense Inspector's Review also rounds language, papering over the fact that Lieutenant General Pyatt and Lieutenant General Flynn, while on the call, discussed how they did not like the optics. That is a direct quote. And they stated it would be in their best military advice to recommend to the Secretary of the Army, Ryan McCarthy,
Is that
to
any
deny the
better?
request from Command General William Walker to deploy the D.C. National Guard and aid U.S. Capitol Police in restoration of order, liberty on Capitol Hill. In addition, former Secretary of the Army Ryan McCarthy claims he was on a 2:31 p.m. call and spoke on that call. This is false, unless he was in the room shadowing the call and he did not speak nor identify himself. He was not on the call. He was en route to Washington, D.C. Regional Office at the Federal Bureau of Investigation to support that agency's concept of operations plan for January 6th. He went on to claim that he called and spoke to Major General Walker at least twice, ordering the deployment of the D.C. National Guard. This is also false. At no time did General Walker take any calls, nor did we ever hear from the Secretary on any of the ongoing conference calls or the secure video teleconferencing throughout the day. This I know because I was with the Command General the entire time recording events. Throughout the day, Major General Walker told by staff officers to stand by with respect to deploying to the Capitol Hill. Only at 5:09 p.m. in the early evening, which I wrote down in my wheel book, was the D.C. Guard given order to deploy and move to the Capitol to assist Capitol Police. We arrived too late. One American lay dead with other sisters and brothers injured, including federal and local law enforcement officers. We were ready and standing by. I know if we were able to deploy immediately when General Walker made the request, the National Guard could have helped end civil disturbance and restored public order quickly. The Army National Guard motto is always ready, always there. The D.C. National Guard was ready to help and assist Capitol Police, but we were not allowed to do our job due to paralyzed decision-making by Acting Secretary of Defense Chris Miller and Secretary of the Army Ryan McCarthy. This led to federal leadership in the Pentagon. This led to a crisis in federal leadership at the Pentagon and delayed the D.C. response by 3 hours and 19 minutes. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today and articulate the facts as they happened. I look forward to answering any questions you may have.
Thank you, Captain. And as we begin our question session, I want to reemphasize how much we appreciate all of you coming forward. I know as a veteran of the Armed Forces myself, this takes an incredible amount of courage to come forward and tell the truth. We'll now move into the questions session, and I begin to... Just a reminder that make sure the microphones are very close to you during this time. I now recognize the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Griffith, for 5 minutes.
We have a sergeant major, a colonel, a brigadier general, and a captain. Your testimony is compelling. Thank you. Now to the questions. On January 6, 2021, were each of you gentlemen with Major General William Walker from 1:49 p.m. through 5:55 p.m., yes or no?
Yes.
I was.
Yes.
Yes.
The Department of Defense Inspector General report, DODIG report, alleges that the Secretary of Army contacted Major General Walker multiple times on January 6 during that time frame. Some allegations are 2 calls, some are 3, but the allegations would be, or the assertions would be, 3:04 p.m., 4:35 p.m., and finally at 5 p.m. Do any of you recall any one of those calls taking place?
Negative, sir. Can I amplify that, though?
Yes, sir.
So, by way of background, I was a political appointee in the Trump administration.
Was somebody
I was a
in the
senior political
room
appointee.
with
I was also a
Walker
guard.
the
I was also in the
whole
Army
time
Reserve and National
during
Guard.
that time?
Now, in June of 2017, I was appointed to acting general counsel of the Department of the Army. The next month, Ryan
Is
McCarthy
this
was
yellow
appointed
bird
acting
kind of
Secretary of the
description,
Army.
over
He
description?
confirmed as Undersecretary of the Army. So Ryan McCarthy was my colleague. He was my friend. I told the committee he was a good Secretary of the Army. I had a great deal of affection for Ryan McCarthy. I know he did for me. So I'm not here to badmouth Ryan McCarthy, but I've got to set the record straight.
Yes,
Now,
sir.
In my memo, I called Pyatt and Flynn liars. I never called McCarthy a liar for two reasons. One, it wasn't clear to me that he was saying some of the things they said he said. I mean, it appeared to me that some of the things they said he said were said by others who were trying to really protect themselves.
This is gonna be a
The other
shit
thing is,
show.
he was my friend. You just don't turn it off. You don't call your friend a liar. So, you know, but at 2:30, at 2:31, at the 2:30, they said that he was on a call with General Walker, and he told him to move the QRF to the Armory. I mean, that did not happen. Ryan McCarthy didn't speak on that call. And we know this because
Matthews,
that call
the
was on a
fellow?
conference bridge. It was a D.C. government conference bridge. Now, the DOD IG incorrectly states that McCarthy requested the call. I helped facilitate that call. General Walker was on a call with Dr. Rodriguez, who was the Homeland Security Advisor for Mayor Bowser. Mayor Bowser was on a call. Chief Son was on a call. Chief Conte was on a call. All of us at this dais were all on a call.
Why is somebody
Ryan McCarthy
talking?
never spoke on that call. I'm a person who was his friend who knew his voice quite well. If he had said anything, I would say that. We were told he was unavailable. I called this executive officer to ask to speak to him, and we were told he was unavailable. General Walter Pyatt and General Charles Flynn were on the call. Subsequently, Flynn denies he was even involved in the call. For what reason, I really don't know. He did so under oath, and Commander
He
Sergeant Major
really
Brooks,
is. He's
myself,
very
and Lieutenant
nervous,
Nick
which
were
I
all interviewed by
understand.
Select Committee. He told
That
them
makes sense,
Now,
but
to me, this is material because Flynn denied under oath twice to the House Oversight Committee and to the Select Committee that he was even participated in the call. That goes to his integrity, to his credibility.
All right,
And
let
I'm-
me-
and I'm sorry. sir.
Let me underline this.
oh my God.
Colonel, you are also an attorney.
Yes, sir.
You
got your
are
degree
off
from
the Q
Harvard Law
Christmas
School.
card
Sir, I got a
list.
mortgage in Great Falls, Virginia. I have no reason to be up here lying because I don't want to go to federal prison.
And you understand that you are, if you lie to Congress, Title 18-1001 makes that a crime. Is that correct?
Unquestionably, sir.
And you also understand
This
that
is
as
a-
a member of the legal
pretty
establishment,
epic. I don't know.
that if you were to lie under oath, your license to practice law, no matter the fact that you have a JD from Harvard, could be in jeopardy. Is that
No
correct?
question, sir. And, sir, I want to point out.
Yes, sir.
I spoke to the Select Committee. I was not under oath, but it doesn't matter because you don't have to be under oath. If you lie to Congress,
Stay
it's still a
away
federal
from
crime.
windows,
Yes,
And
sir.
I'm fully aware of that. And I submitted a document stating that these men were liars, and I stand by it 100%. And it's the stand on my army that they got away with it. No one said anything about it. And they even sent Pyatt's name to the President of the United States to have him promoted. He was a liar. And so, and all of us can attest to that.
Is it just
And
to
you want the
protect
truth to
Trump,
come out.
like at
No
any
question about it,
cost?
sir.
Good, bad, or ugly, correct?
Exactly.
Anybody here want anything but the truth? Any of the four witnesses want anything but the truth to come out?
No, sir.
Good, bad, or ugly, doesn't matter, no matter what side you're on. Is that correct? I heard a yes, a no, sir.
Yes,
You
sir.
want the
Yes,
truth?
sir. Nothing but the truth. Yes, sir.
Yes,
Colonel Matthews, Brigadier General?
That's correct.
that's correct, yes.
Captain, all right. Well, I don't know, I got lots of other questions to ask, but I appreciate you jumping
Which
in
means
and
he
clearly
doesn't.
with your heartfelt emotions, telling us that things weren't exactly true, and that, in fairness, the January 6th committee was not told the truth. Is that correct, Colonel?
Well, so they were not told the truth, but I think they knew that though, and they disregarded that. And this is what I mean. So General Flynn testified before the House Oversight Committee on June 15th, 2021. During his opening statement and during his questioning, he stated explicitly that he was not on that phone call. He made no statements on that call. Subsequently, he was interviewed by the January 6th committee, and he also stated, he was directly asked by the senior investigative counsel, did you make any statements on that call? He says he did not. He was not on the call, he says. Now, that is perjury in my opinion. I mean, I'm a lawyer, but it's for court to decide, but to me that's perjury. But the important point is, later I raised that. I was interviewed by the Select Committee in December.
Unfortunately, my time is up, but hopefully you'll get another opportunity to talk about it. I apologize. My time is up. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields, now recognize the
Wait, you had 50
subcommittee's ranking member,
seconds.
Ms. Torres, for 5 minutes.
Colonel Matthews,
ma'am.
I spent more than 17 years as 911 dispatcher. I worked through some very difficult times in the city of LA, Rodney King riots, the verdicts. On 9/11, I was tasked with putting together mobile field force units to dispatch to critical locations to ensure that those would not be attacked. So I know what an EOC is supposed to look like. I know what orders to follow during certain types of emergency. I was prepared with a manual that was provided to me, things that we have practiced time and time and time again. During an emergency, you agree that it is vital that we have a quick response and a unified coordination that has clear communications, correct?
No question.
I was struck by your written testimony when you said the DC National Guard was delayed because Milley, McCarthy, and McConville believed that the President of the United States might deploy the National Guard improperly on that day and had taken measures to prevent this. This must have been incredibly frustrating for you and for your colleagues in the Guard. Why do you think senior military leaders believe the President of the United States might employ the National Guard improperly on January 6th? Was it based on their words, actions, or both?
I think that I think that belief was irrational because I don't believe the president ever gave any of them an unlawful order.
Okay,
He gave none of them an unlawful order.
Secretary
He appointed all of them to high office.
Ryan
Appointed them all
McCarthy
to high office, and they-
testified that on January 6th Select Committee, that at one point he was walking down the Pentagon hallways, and one of the most seasoned reporters asked him whether the Army was planning to seize ballot boxes. Do you know if ideas like the president seizing ballot boxes was something Secretary McCarthy was considering when making decisions about deploying the Guard on January 6th?
Sorry.
I think it was, but I think it was not a rational belief. I think,
Okay.
so Secretary McCarthy says.
Was there widespread fear within the Department of Defense about the president using the military or other levers of the state to impact the election around the time of the 2020 election?
No, so it was not a widespread fear. It was a fear among a clique of officers led by the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff who talked about a so-called Reichstag moment.
Okay, well, let me tell you, the New York Times reported in January 2022 that President Trump actually directed his attorney, Rudy Giuliani, to ask the Department of Homeland Security to see if it could legally take control of voting machines in key swing states. I'd like to ask for unanimous consent to enter this New York Times article entitled "Trump Had Role in Weighing Proposals to Seize Voting Machines" into the record.
Without objection, so ordered.
Command Sergeant Major Brooks, you served in the Army and Army National Guard for 29 years. You spent the months after January 6th right here on this Capitol Hill protecting the citadel of democracy. I understand that for the entire time that you were deployed, you slept in your office, with the exception of maybe 1 week over the course of months. You clearly are a patriot who loves our country. How did you feel watching the Capitol get overrun, knowing that you were almost walking distance away but not permitted to come assist law enforcement in defending it?
It was very disheartening to see. I believe it was something that, I think any of us who serve in the military was something that we didn't think we would see in our lifetime. It was very frustrating to know that we had the capability and the personnel and unable to respond.
Thank you.
It's hard to describe.
Brigadier General Aaron Dean, what is the basis and rationale on which the Department of Defense and DC National Guard rely in determining the equipment, tactics, techniques, and procedures that the Guard could use to respond to escalations in the protests on January 6th? Was this atypical?
I don't think it wasn't atypical.
We were just we right now are just months away from the 2024 election, and the man who incited the 2020 insurrection is on the ballot again. What corrective actions has the National Guard Bureau of Department of Defense taken to ensure the National Guard can plan, coordinate, and execute command and control in response to threats in the national capital region?
I can only really talk about the District of Columbia National Guard and its preparation, especially around January 6th. We match capability with request. So if there's a request, we match the capability that we have, and we had riot control capability on that day to provide services for the Capitol.
So you would say that over the last 4 years, the smoke has been cleared and everyone is clear on how to respond, and politics will not take priority over necessity.
I can say that the District of Columbia National Guard is always ready to respond.
Thank you, sir.
And was ready even before that date.
Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Now recognize Congressman D'Esposito of New York. 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First question for everyone. We could start and just go down the line. Did you testify in front of the January 6th Select Committee?
No, I received a phone call.
We say testified, I had an informal interview with the.
Right, but it was
You can move
not
the mic
archived,
closer.
correct?
I'm sorry, say again?
If you could move the mic closer, please. We'll give you a couple extra seconds.
So the answer,
It's no.
Command Sergeant, was no.
No.
Colonel, you were interviewed but never in front of the committee.
Correct.
Brigadier General?
No.
Captain?
Informally interviewed, but never in front of the committee.
Very hard to tell
got it.
who's.
So, as
who's
the
telling
chairman
the
mentioned in his
truth.
opening remarks, we're here today to not only correct the record, but also make sure that we are better prepared today than we were, right? We want to be better prepared as a nation, as an agency. We want to be better prepared for the next, God forbid, incident than we were that day, not really to focus on President Trump. That's not really what we're here for today. So, Captain Nick, in your opening testimony, or the one submitted to the committee, you said that at about 2:30 conference call, and I quote, Lieutenant General Piat and Lieutenant General Flynn,
sour
while on the
grapes.
call,
Ooh,
discussed how they did not like the
interesting.
optics. They stated it would be in their best military advice to recommend to the Secretary of the Army, Ryan McCarthy, to deny the request from Command General William Walker to deploy the D.C. National Guard and aid the United States Capitol Police in the restoration of ordered liberty, or as some called on this committee, democracy, on Capitol Hill. Major Brooks, during the bipartisan transcribed interview the subcommittee conducted in March 2024, you were asked if you recall hearing the word optics on your 2:30 p.m. phone call. You responded, yes, and I quote, General Flynn and General Piat both made numerous comments about the optics of having the Guard on the Capitol and how they would much prefer that the Guard relieve MPD officers elsewhere in the city so that they could respond to the Capitol, close quote. For everyone, and we'll start with Command Sergeant Major Brooks, why would these military experts want to send the National Guard to relieve MPD officers elsewhere after the Capitol was breached at 2:12 p.m.?
In my opinion, it was a senseless recommendation. The logistics and the amount of time it would have taken to replace individual MPD officers across the city would have taken way too much time, and it would have been even further delayed.
I think the key term there is senseless. Colonel.
So their whole attitude
What's in
was
it for
that
Loudermilk,
this
though?
mission was
I
for
don't
law
get it.
enforcement. They never wanted DC Guard to be in the streets in the first place. They didn't ever want to approve the 350. They thought this was a law enforcement mission. They believed it would have required 100,000 demonstrators before the DC Guard was necessary, and that was the Army's thinking. So they wanted, and they also said they wanted no involvement in the politicization of the or no involvement in the electoral certification process. They wanted no DOD role there. So that was their attitude. So we were not allowed to be east of 9th Street, which is where the Capitol is. We had to have the Secretary of the Army's approval to move 3 unarmed guardsmen in one block.
Right, so sounds like baseless decisions. Brigadier General.
So I did hear the word optics, and they did use it, especially
Dropping the
specifically,
411.
General Piat, I know, said optics, and his concern was he did not want soldiers or airmen on the Capitol grounds with the Capitol in the background. And so they were giving every other reason why we should be around the Capitol, away from the Capitol, and not responding to the Capitol. And part of what I believe is I believe that they're unfamiliar with our true capabilities and what we're really designed to do as the National Guard.
Can you say that again for
that's
everyone
very
to hear?
generous.
I think they're unfamiliar with our true capabilities and what we're designed to do as the National Guard under Title 32.
Precisely. Captain.
I did hear the word optics also, and General Piat and General Flynn did say it wasn't in their best military advice to recommend to the Secretary at this time to approve that request.
And I only have 30 seconds, but I would just like to go down the line once again and answer this question. Was it clear at the time that the #1 priority was to restore order or to protect the safety of members of Congress, staff, or visitors here at the Capitol complex. Captain.
Absolutely.
No, that was not,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
it was clear that we needed to be at the Capitol at that time.
Right,
I
you
mean-
needed to be, but was that their number one priority?
No, it was not.
Brigadier General.
Their number one
Shit show.
priority was to make the police respond and not the National Guard.
Colonel.
Absolutely not, Congressman.
It was not their priority, sir.
Thank you. I think it's clear. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Now recognize Mr. Morelli for his 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to start my question, and I apologize, I only have 5 minutes, so I'll try to get through some of this quickly. But first of all, appreciate very much your frustration. This was your job to defend the Capitol, and for the reasons both of this hearing and a lot of conversation, you weren't called on to do that. So obviously, it's palpable how strongly you feel about this missed opportunity.
Maybe that's
to
the
defend this, and
point.
I appreciate
The
that.
point
I
is
don't think
just
there's
to
any
be
disagreement
confusing
here. You should have been here much
and
sooner.
throw more names out there.
And I don't know that anyone argues that it was your fault that happened. I am a little shocked. Mr. D'Esposito said, we're not here to talk about President Trump. To me, that's a little like asking Mrs. Lincoln, other than the incident, how did you like the play? The truth is, the Commander-in-Chief could have ordered the National Guard. And as I said earlier, and frankly, I think Mr. Griffith said, and I'll have to go back and look at the record, that the President ordered the troops out on January 6th. There's no evidence anywhere that I've heard of other than him saying it. There's literally no evidence of logs from the White House. There's no evidence anywhere that the President did that. And frankly, look, I don't know much about this. I'm a civilian. If I were the President of the United States, as soon as the breach happened, as soon as there was any measure of violence at the Capitol, I would have assembled people in the Situation Room, and I don't care about this. If the Secretary of Defense was there, the Secretary of the Army was there, I'm the Commander-in-Chief of the United States. And so I guess I'd begin, General Dean, if an order came from the White House, from the President, that
Well, these are
deployed
like
the National
scripted
Guard,
fights on,
would that order have
reality
been
shows.
questioned
It's
by
Real
anyone?
Housewives of the Insurrection.
I would answer it
Told
this
you.
way.
I called it.
I would say that order was delegated. The responsibility
I called it
of
in January
the
of 2021.
response from the commanding general was written in a written document to him that basically gave him parameters on what he could do and what he couldn't do.
So yeah,
Now,
I
could the
appreciate that.
president-
I
now, could-
appreciate that.
yeah.
But I don't believe the delegation of authority exempts the higher authority. If a call came from the President or the White House that the President wants this deployed, if the Secretary of Defense were somewhere, the Secretary of Army were somewhere else, would you have ignored that order?
No, we wouldn't have.
No.
Not at all.
That's, look, and I don't want to draw you into it. I'm just saying those who want to absolve the higher levels of command. Likewise, if the Secretary of Army had not acted, but the Secretary of Defense, Secretary Miller, had called, and his office had called General Walker and said, deploy the National Guard immediately, would anyone have questioned that order?
No, we wouldn't. I'll speak from my perspective. We wouldn't have questioned it, but we would have wanted it coordinated based on the document that was sent by the Secretary of the Army.
So not to interrupt you, you would have sought a manner to verify and to make sure that that was legally the appropriate process, but you would have acted on it immediately, no?
I think the whole thing was there would have been a conversation, right?
Yeah.
So there was this talk about they needed a CONOP, right? A concept of operations.
Yeah.
Well, that's a discussion. In a crisis, that's a discussion.
I agree.
And so with that, there would have been a discussion about the deployment of the National Guard with any order given by any senior official.
Yeah, and I guess I get, and this isn't necessarily a question, but what I hear is a lot of confusion between the White House, the Department of Defense, the Secretary of the Army and his office. I don't know what happened. I guess there's varying accounts. And what I think each of you is here to testify is that the order didn't come down.
Congressman, may I
What
speak to that,
just
please, sir?
happened?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, chain of command runs from the President to the Secretary of Defense to Secretary of the Army to General Walker. Now, the Secretary of Defense authorized the D.C. National Guard to deploy at 3 o'clock. The D.C. Guard was able to deploy at 3 o'clock.
Yes.
It had the capability, readiness to go on the street at 3 o'clock. But the order didn't come from the Secretary of the Army. So that was the
No, I understand.
the bottleneck there. The President would follow the chain of command. So typically the President, and I must
No,
remind-
I would say this, excuse me, I'm going to reclaim my time, I apologize. Is that if I were the President of the United States and had ordered it, if that were true, there's no evidence that happened, but let's say it had been ordered, and then 20 minutes goes by and nothing's happening, I'll be on the phone again to my secretaries, and I'd be on the phone to General Walker and say, what's going on? I've ordered you out, move out. And with all due respect, conversation should have happened. I don't know if it did or did not, but.
So Congressman, I think that,
Who made the ruckus?
the President would have called the Secretary of the Army. The Secretary of the Army would have said, we're moving as fast as we can. We need to be deliberate. We need to know more information. That's what the Secretary of the Army said in sworn testimony,
But
Congressman.
that's not what happened. He didn't say that in his testimony.
He did say that in his testimony, sir.
No, he didn't. He didn't say the President of the United States ordered him to do
No,
anything.
he said that if the President would have called, he said it would not have made a difference. The President's call would not have made a difference. Secretary McCarthy.
I disagree. Well,
Secretary McCarthy, I think you're right also.
Respectfully, sir, let me reclaim my time. In fact, my time is over. But the point that I'm trying to make is that I don't disagree. This is an important conversation. I don't think it's one for our committee. I think the Armed Services Committee ought to be holding this. And there is a question to make sure that come January 2025, we better be damn sure we have communication that is clear, compelling, and chain of command. But I do think there is no way to absolve responsibility of the President, the Secretary of Defense, or the Secretary of the Army. You may dispute what happened, and I think that's fair, but something should have happened that triggered the deployment of the National Guard sooner so that you could have done your jobs, and we wouldn't be having this hearing this morning. So with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back, and I agree with him on his last statement that we need to be prepared for the next time that we have January 6th come up, which is in the law. I would also correct the record. I did say the President, the gentleman is correct, that's not in the evidence. The President had previously given Christopher Miller the authority to act, as he stated in his testimony, which was previously submitted into the record. And Christopher Miller is the one who gave the order that did not get followed, apparently, by the Secretary of Army. That being said, I now recognize Dr. Murphy for his 5 minutes of question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize if I'm a little out of breath. It's just being old. Thank you all for coming forward. It takes absolute courage. Absolute courage. Every damn meeting we have now has Trump derangement syndrome talking to it. This was a dereliction of duty by the Secretary of the Army, who refused, by the way, to come before this committee because he knew his culpability. He knew that he lied and he was derelict in the duty. And I appreciate from the bottom of my heart you guys standing up for the United States of America. You took an oath to it, as did the Secretary, and you're keeping your oath. So I deeply appreciate it at your own personal
Gal
cost.
dropped a great
because we
link
know
in
the
the chat.
weaponization of
Kyle
this government
Cheney
is
tweet about
occurring
this
at an
meeting.
exponential rate. And it's just it is just proof in the pudding that this is what we're dealing with. I swear, why do we not have bipartisan support in getting to the bottom of this is beyond me. It's everything about Trump. Captain Nick, you know, the summer before in 2020, when there was an absolute disaster in this country where riots and burning of federal buildings occur, we saw billions of dollars, multiple deaths occur. Speaker Pelosi, I believe, is culpable with part of this in allowing this, paving the way for the terrible thing to happen on January 6th
That's
to just
that's doing
dismiss
some heavy
America's
work there,
memory
bud.
of what happened the summer before. In contrast, the protests at Capitol on January 6th, which we know were all wrong, there was no hesitation in creating a politicized community. And we had a former Republican who saw it as a personal grind to go after President Trump, basically not allowing evidence to come before the committee. It's been more than 3 years, and members of the D.C. National Guard are coming forward with your oath to provide clarity. I'll just ask Captain Nick, in your testimony, you mentioned you were a confidential source for the Select Committee. In addition, you go on to state, my confidentiality was breached to the national media. Would you mind expanding upon that?
Yes, sir. First, I'd like to correct the record from a previous statement from your colleague. When he asked a question about Pentagon officials and their desire to send troops, I said absolutely. I meant they did not at the time want to send troops to the Capitol, just for clarification. I was informally, after January 6th, at some time after, I was informally interviewed by the Select Committee on January 6th. I gave informal testimony and hired counsel from Tully Rickney, Dan Meyer, who's also behind me. After giving my written notes and informal testimony,
They're gonna make
a couple weeks later, I was contacted by Political from a news outlet, from a writer requesting comment on my handwritten notes they got a copy of. I then contacted Dan, who then contacted the select committee to resolve that. But it had to be leaked at some point from probably the select committee, because that's the only people I talked to and gave my notes to.
Yeah, sure, Jan.
It is obviously evident with anybody with an objective eye that the committee was put forth to tell one thing. If that committee
give
had
them to
gone
John
in front of
Solomon?
anything in a legal
Maybe
department, you would
Emerald
have
Robinson?
cross-examination, other witnesses, et cetera. We never saw any of that to get to the actual truth, which is what all Americans, whether you're which party or not, should
It
believe in
wasn't
doing.
those
Period.
double margaritas
Period.
with
I just want to
Emerald
reiterate
Robinson?
something. This is actually, I guess, to Colonel Matthews and General Dean. Turning to the matter of security, Secretary of the Army and McCarthy have said the D.C. National Guard was not prepared for immediate deployment. Do you agree with that statement?
That statement is false. We were prepared in many ways. We even had backup plans. We call them branches and sequels, right? So not only did we have a force that was at Andrews Air Force Base that was training and doing civil disturbance that weekend, prepared to deploy on that day, that was ready to deploy on that day, we also had traffic control points that were at MPD, and those members had riot control gear in the trunk, not visible to the public, but for their self-protection, in case MPD had to respond, they had the appropriate gear to provide civil disturbance, riot control efforts if needed.
Yeah, we really
And
haven't
so
talked
we
about
had
the
the
gear
capability,
yet,
we
because
had
that
the
was an
planning,
issue too, right?
we had the know-how. So the question that I have is, so out of all the events, out of all the inaugurations the District of Columbia National Guard supported, out of all the NATO summits, out of all the IMF protests that we've had, the summer 2020, COVID, we were not able to respond to this, we're incapable, that's categorically false.
I find it just, my time is short, but I just find it a slap in the face to all the good men and women who serve in our armed forces to say you're not prepared. A slap in the face. And because this guy wanted to save his butt with the hope of getting in the Biden administration, that's point blank what happened. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll yield back.
Gentleman yields back after consultation with Ms. Torres. We've agreed to do a second round of questioning, and I would recognize Ms. Torres for her additional 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you. The claim that somehow the Select Committee didn't investigate the National Guard response to the security failures at the Capitol on January 6th is inconsistent with the facts. As I mentioned, the Select Committee interviewed 24 individuals and reviewed 37,000 pages of documents related to the National Guard on January 6th.
Oh, Ghostbusters, yeah.
Their response, and 46 of those pages are in the final report that was issued. If you search the transcripts of those interviews held with these witnesses ahead of this hearing, you'll see the significant number of questions used for testimony from the Select Committee as their foundation. Just because there wasn't a court reporter doesn't mean that it didn't happen. As I told you in the back
Kathy,
room, I
your
was in
guess
the
is
balcony
as good as mine.
while all of this was unfolding. I was also witness to an assault on an officer where the door swung open on balcony that I was sitting. But just because they didn't interview me for that incident doesn't mean that any of those investigations did not happen. But let me just remind everyone, about what the president was putting out on social media during that time. At 2:24 p.m., the president tweeted out regarding Vice President Pence not having the courage to do the wrong
Good
thing
receipts, gal. Good receipts in the
that
chat.
he wanted him to do. At 3:13, the president had issued another statement saying, "I'm asking for everyone at the U.S. Capitol to remain peaceful, no violence. Remember, we are the party of law and order. Respect the law and our great men and women in blue. Thank you." He didn't tell people to go home. He didn't tell them to go home. It took many of his own closest allies to get him to this point. The president didn't want the violence against the police or against members of Congress or against his own vice president to stop. The truth is, he wanted the violence to continue until he could take custody and continue to keep custody of his position. At 4:17, he finally posts a video that contained many lies about the election, but finally encourages people to go home. And that's when they finally started home. Those are the real facts of what happened on that day. So, in addition to under Democratic leadership, and I know that you want to continue to blame Democrats for what happened on that day, but Democrats did not tell the mob, the angry mob that was armed, to go to the Capitol. Democrats are not responsible for that. The request, about this January 6th attack, we have gone back and forth as to who was ordered to do what. That information is very clear. There were no clear
as
directions.
head of whatever I was head of at the time,
Because if there
I
were
thought,
clear directions,
well, clearly there doesn't
everyone
need to
would
be
have
anything
moved in
done about the
unison.
chaos.
Everybody would have been together,
Bye.
putting together those plans that you said already exist. So, Colonel Matthews, you seem to want to respond. Please go ahead.
Well, ma'am, the committee, so the committee interviewed, again, Command Sergeant Major Brooks, myself, and Lieutenant Nick. We all told them that there are issues with the credibility of several witnesses, that people who have not been responded honestly and accurately as part of the investigation, and that was disregarded. And that goes to the credibility of what they were telling the committee. Like, for instance,
No, but how do you know that it was disregarded, sir? What's your evidence about that? How do you fucking
It
know?
was debatable what its purpose was. There's no debate about that. It was a civil disturbance response force. It was designed to respond to a riot. But general officers.
I think you're missing the point. There would have been no riot. There would have been no riot had the President of the United States not set up the stage and ordered people and told them that he would join them at the U.S. Capitol. There had been no galley that was erected to hang the vice president if the president had not want them to stop us from certifying the election. You're missing the point of all of what happened 6 months prior to January 6th. The chaos that was happening within the branches of the military that are sworn to never get involved in domestic affairs. I yield back.
Brilliant. Brava.
The gentle lady yields. I apologize for a brief absence. I have another committee that a bill got called up right at the worst time that I had to go present. But I think a couple of points of clarification. The Capitol breach began well before the people at the White House made it down to the Capitol. The gallows were actually erected at 6 o'clock in the morning, and no one knew exactly what Mike Pence was going to do until about 1:30 in the afternoon. These are just some of the questions of the narrative that came out from the January 6th report, which is this much. This is how much is discussed about the D.C. National Guard. The primary objective of the Select Committee was to investigate the security failure at the U.S. Capitol because we have to identify the failures before we can fix things.
Baby.
There was an entire team, the blue team, who was commissioned with doing that. I challenge anyone to look in here and find anything of substance from the blue team whatsoever. So, this is why it's important that we do the oversight that is the job of Congress, and specifically the subcommittee, to look into what happened. This is clearly within the security failure of the Capitol. This should not be political. This should not be biased in one way or the other. Regardless of who was coming to the Capitol, regardless of who broke into the Capitol, that should have never happened. There should have been no breach of this Capitol. The resources are here. And the idea that the New Jersey National Guard would get here before our own National Guardsmen, whose job is to, as Colonel Matthews said, riot control, traffic control. This is their job, to come in and help defend this Capitol. And so, with that, I do have a few questions here.
It's gonna be cool.
The DOD-IG report alleges that DOD officials did not delay or obstruct a response to the Capitol. Sergeant Major Brooks, I'll start with you. Do you believe that the deployment of the D.C. National Guard was delayed?
Yes.
Who do you believe delayed it?
Secretary McCarthy and senior officials in the Army staff.
Okay, why do you believe that they delayed it?
I believe their misunderstanding of the capabilities of DC National Guard and the seriousness of the situation, to be honestly, I have no idea why we never received that order. All I know is that they were more concerned with what it would look like with soldiers with the Capitol in the background than protecting the Capitol of the United States.
Colonel Matthews, same question for you. Do you believe that deployment of the D.C. National Guard was delayed?
Yes, sir. I believe that it was a result of an overcautious, reluctant, hesitant, facilitating leadership. And I think they were concerned about the optics, the political optics of a military presence here. And I don't think they trusted the commander-in-chief. And I think that was because of our senior ranking military officer who was making disparaging remarks about the president to them.
Excuse me?
You got to remember, the people who ran the
What?
Army are very close associates of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. They owed this position. They owed their positions to him. And he was
Oh
not,
my God.
There are books about how
Give me a
how
fucking
Chairman
break.
Milley was impeding the ability of the
Give
president.
me a
So I think
motherfucking
that was an issue
break.
there, sir.
So just to clarify, you think that there was a delay that was calculated for one reason or the other, but you're not indicating that there was a nefarious purpose in that. Just so we don't walk out of here with conspiracy theories that the DOD wanted the Capitol
This
to
is a
fail. I
weird
just want to make sure
walk
that that's not where you're going.
This is
with
an
that.
odd unringing of the
Saying
bell.
that the conditions were set by this talk of a coup, of a Reichstag moment. I mean, the idea that I mean, let me be frank about it. A bunch of black kids in the D.C. Guard are going to usurp the election for Trump. It's crazy, but that's what they were talking about. I mean, and it's crazy talk, and it was out there, and it's in books. I mean, Milley's talked about it.
What
Well,
in
I've
the
got you, Colonel
actual
Matthews. Do you believe the
fuck?
DOD-IG report accurately reflects the events of January 6, 2021?
That DOD-IG report is replete with incorrect information, false information. Even the Select Committee's report has shown that.
Swix?
Can I give you a couple of examples, please?
Sure.
It says that 1635, Ryan McCarthy called General Walker and directed him to go to the Capitol. Now, McCarthy, if you read his transcript
feel like
from
this
the
is a game
Select
of
Committee,
Twister.
he said he never
Name
did that.
twister.
He was getting ready for a news
Right
conference.
foot,
He was taking
Flynn.
notes and writing
Left
and,
butt cheek,
so preparing
Millie.
for a televised news conference, and he overheard Brigadier General Leneve direct General Walker to go. But General Leneve says he never told General Walker to go. He never gave a go order. So they do like this. They point in each other's directions and say, but the DOD-IG puts it in. Then they claim that they had to call Walker again at 1700, like 25 minutes later, and direct him to go. That's an absolute falsehood. McCarthy was in a televised press conference. Mr. Storch, the DOD Inspector General, has an obligation to correct the record for, I mean, where does he go? Where does General Walker go to get his reputation back? I mean, you smeared this man by anonymous sources.
Oh my gosh, it's Cold Sore Gary.
Who were bitter because of
That
Walker's testimony.
domestic
in March.
abuser
They didn't like that.
weirdo.
They wanted to get General Pyatt
That's
promoted
Gary,
to
I
general.
think.
And so they
I don't
wanted
know.
to
It's
take
kind of
General
hard to
Walker.
see, but I
Even
think the
General
dude
Milley
with the
engages in
long
that.
hair and
General Milley
glasses
engages in
that just sat
and
down.
if you read his transcript, sir,
I think
from the
that's
subcommittee,
Gary from
he implies Walker was lying
Dumb
or
Corner.
exaggerating. And everything General Milley says in his transcribed interview from the committee is incorrect, and the committee staff had to know it.
So let me just clarify something here. General Walker did testify under oath to the Select Committee. Is that correct?
Correct, yes, he did.
The implication of the DOD-IG report is that General Walker falsely testified. Is that fair?
To the Senate Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee and to the Senate
Looks
Rules
like
Committee. He
someone
testified in
went
March,
to Dry
March
Bar to get a
2021.
blowout.
The DOD report came out in November 2021, and the implication was that he was not truthful in his testimony.
So,
And this is a sitting officer of the Congress of the United States appointed by Speaker Pelosi, a sworn career federal law
Yeah,
enforcement
everyone
executive.
needs to stop
in the Major
thinking
General of the
Harvard
United
is
States
so
Army. They were
fucking
implying that
awesome,
that
okay?
he committed outright perjury on live television.
so
And I took exception to that. You know, I wrote my memo, sir. I wasn't working for General Walker.
That's the
I mean,
thing, Kate.
I had nothing to gain from that, but it
Who
was the right thing
and
to do.
who?
This man was
Who-
responsible
who
for all
and
your
why?
personal safety. He was smeared by.
Or is it just a mind fuck?
let me reclaim my time. There's other questions I need to get to, but I just wanted to make sure that you understand that the implications
is
of
it
the
a look over
DOD-IG report
here
is that General
before
Walker falsified
the DC case
testimony
starts?
or was not truthful. Would you believe that he would be selected to be the head security officer of the House of Representatives by Nancy Pelosi if it was known that he had lied under oath? Okay, I just
sir.
want to make sure
sir.
we're talking about someone who was selected by my colleagues on the other side of the aisle to be the sergeant at arms here. This, I'm
Well, I
just getting the
certainly
point.
understand
This
being
is a
nervous.
bipartisan
You know,
issue
I
that we're
totally
talking
understand
about here.
that.
Let me move on
That I
real quickly.
get.
Captain Nick, the DOD-IG states they received a copy of contemporaneous notes from Secretary McCarthy's aide-de-camp from January 6, 2021. Did the DOD-IG request a copy of your notes
Oh,
that day?
hell yeah, he is.
They did not ask for your notes.
I never spoke to anybody at the Department of Defense,
He dedoubly, he
IG's
double
office.
dog
and
downed.
they never requested my notes, and they never contacted me.
No, okay, interesting. I'll do a couple more questions and we'll continue down the aisle. The DOD-IG report alleges that on June 20, in June of 2020, that June 2020 taught Secretary McCarthy that he could not simply rely on the DC National Guard to figure out the details. General Dean, what do you make of that statement?
I think that he's unfamiliar with what the DC National Guard can actually do and its true capability. So I think
Well, he's
probably
kind
being
of
advised
showing his
by,
dance
active
card to
senior
us, isn't he?
active component officers
who's
that
at
have
the
never spent
top
a day
of
in their
the
life in the
list?
National Guard. And they're advising him on what the National Guard should or shouldn't do. It's like a surface warfare officer in the Navy talking about a submariner. You're in the same service, but you do different things.
Maybe they've
And
been
so I think
promised
part of the issue
positions
is
in the new
taking military advice
Department
from a
of
senior
Defense.
active component officer about National Guard issues pertaining to civil disturbance or domestic response. I think it's out of their wheelhouse, and I think sometimes they can provide inaccurate information. And in doing so, it creates this lack of trust because
Why
now
isn't
you don't
the
know who to
timer
believe.
going?
You don't know whether to believe the people that are actually supposed to advise you on military matters
All
or
right,
the National
yeah,
Guard. But I would propose to you that.
All
you
right,
need
have a good
somebody
one. I'll talk to you later.
Advise you on Army and Air Force National Guard matters, not just military matters, if you want to get to the truth.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody want to start the
Sergeant
timer?
Major Brooks, same question, but let me proceed that with, there were a lot of acts of violence, riots throughout the country during 2020. We had that in Georgia. As a response to the riots in Atlanta, the governor of Georgia called out the state patrol and the Georgia National Guard.
That sums it up. Thank you, Gal.
No
Last
one raised
comment
an
for
issue
now
with
is
that
this
because
is dumb,
that
and
is
this
a
is-
job
this
of the
hearing is a
National
waste
Guard
of
to
time,
respond
and it
to the
clarifies
governor
nothing, and fuck it all.
and,
LOL.
provide
XOXO
for
love ya.
civil
Bye, Gal.
disturbance and support and riot control. Is really the same question I did to General Dean. Is that not understood by certain DOD officials that ultimately that is the same role as the DC National Guard, it's just the chain of command is differently since DC is not a state?
Exactly. Perfect
Yes,
summary.
sir. The
Yes,
DC
total
National Guard
power.
is unique in that aspect. In fact, there are
Weird.
actual
Weird flexing.
DC code that gives special authorities to the DC National Guard that no other National Guard in the country have to conduct business within
What
the
is
district
the
and
National
conduct law
Guard, as
enforcement
asked
operations
earlier?
in support of, federal or district agencies. I believe that General Dean is absolutely accurate. I asked the question,
I'm really gonna
where
go
was
with
the
pumpkin.
chief of the National Guard Bureau in this when you were discussing guard capabilities? You were only asking active duty military who had never served in the Guard, did not truly understand capabilities and authorities, And at no time you reached out to the 4-star general in charge of the National Guard.
Oh, Jen, you didn't need to
get
do that.
information.
Thank you.
Although-
I love that little heart.
You had all the information necessary if you
You're so
just
sweet.
understood the role that had been delegated to you
Yeah, I would think it would
many
be a
months or
pumpkin.
even years prior to. I think it is incredibly important going forward that the Secretary of Defense, the
Sandy,
Secretary of the Army, the Chief of Staff
Oh,
of the
Sandy
Army,
Backham,
to
you
include
mean?
the Sergeant Major of
The
the
whole
Army,
enchilada? I
are
love
thoroughly
Sandy so
briefed
much.
on the authorities, capabilities, and their responsibility that has been delegated to them over the DC National Guard and its ability to respond to the nation's capital. We thoroughly train on our ability to be a reserve force for the active component. Why does the active component not thoroughly train on us?
Thank you. Appreciate the thorough answers there. Very important issue. I now recognize the full committee ranking member, Ms. Morelli, for 5 minutes for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll admit, I'm a simple guy, and I do want to do some follow-ups to Mr. Loudermilk's questions, which were important. Also recognize that General Walker was held such high esteem by members of our side of the aisle. We made him.
That
the
sounds like a
Sergeant at Arms after
fantastic
January
idea.
6th. So I think we have as much faith in him and had as much faith in him as all of you did during that time. The way I see this, and maybe I'm wrong, if I'm the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, even though I've delegated authority, I think at some period after 3 o'clock,
I like the poster
when I see
behind
that
him.
there doesn't seem to be much movement, I'm going to pick up the phone and call the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of the Army and say exactly what's going on.
Another
Well, they've issued
Trump
orders, are
derangement
having, or there's
syndrome.
confusion. At some point, I would have had my Chief of Staff call General Walker and say
Yeah, I
exactly
think we,
what's happening
We
on
have the
ground.
insurrection was
My
Plan
only
B,
point
has
is it
some
would
good
not
info
have
on
taken
that
me-
too, and
I'm, again,
any
I'm not
Gal
sophisticated,
Suburban
but it wouldn't have
thread.
taken me 3.5 hours
Any Gal Suburban thread
while I'm
on
sitting in the
Chris
White House
Miller.
watching this unfold, confident in my view that, well, I've signed the necessary papers, so I'm not sure what's happening, but it's all good because I signed the papers.
But yeah, you're
This is an
absolutely right.
attack on the United
Kate.
States Capitol, the citadel
Right again.
of democracy here in this country and around the world. So I just, for all the other misdirection here, and I'm not suggesting that we're trying to bring the president into this unnecessarily. It's that the president is necessarily part of the chain of command. By the way, so is the Secretary of Defense, and so is the Secretary of the Army. So I'm not absolving them.
Give
They
us a
clearly had
delicious
direct
error,
line
Kate.
responsibility
Don't
to
ever-
make sure
don't
this
be
happened.
sorry.
And at some point,
Don't be
when this is
disappointed. It
going
was
on, in the
beautiful
midst
and
of the
delicious.
chaos, if only a few minutes goes by and something's not happening, I'm picking up the damn phone. I'm going to find out exactly what's going on. But to this point, so look, we have high respect, the greatest respect for General Walker. We would have continued him as Secretary or Sergeant of Arms. It was my friends over there who made the decision to remove him,
enchiladas, so
and
isn't
that's
that
fine.
essentially
They have
the
that
same thing?
responsibility. So let me ask this, and maybe I'm not sure anyone can answer this, but let me direct it first to Sergeant Major Brooks. Tell me what the protocol should be going forward, since we're all focused on what's supposed to happen. Tell us in the future, whether it's January 6, 2025, or any other day that involves a breach of the Capitol or issues here, what's the protocol? What should we know needs to be in place that people fear wasn't? How do we make sure this doesn't happen again? What's the protocol like?
One positive step that I believe has already been taken is I
Court-martial
believe they've
Charles
given the
Floyd.
authority to the chief of the Capitol Police to call on the guard without further approval. That's a huge step. Secondly, I believe that the
would
DC
that be
National Guard
Nancy
has been
Pelosi
neglected
who
for many
helped
years
make sure that happened?
for what I
Evil
believe to
Nancy
be the
Pelosi.
lack of
Who had the plan?
knowledge
It
or
failed,
understanding.
and then
It
now,
was put on a
okay,
shelf.
I'm confused.
Those who were delegated authority over, the Secretary of the Army, the Secretary of Defense, did not thoroughly understand their responsibility.
Oh my God, there's not even,
You know,
the
they're
GOP
ultimately
isn't
one
even a
of the
thing anymore.
commanders, one of the
It's
senior
a,
leaders
it's
of
a,
the DC
it's a
National
whole
Guard.
op.
Over the 17 years that I served in the DC National Guard, repeatedly,
There's no
the
platform
National Guard Bureau
except
came
for
down
Project
and removed
2025
units,
and
military
its
police
training
units
academy.
that would respond to the Capitol, have removed them from the
Teresa.
DC National Guard without objection. If the governor of your state was told they were going to move one of their guard units, your governor would be upset and there would be a significant challenge to that, correct?
Girl, I'm just glad you're here.
The Secretary of the Army is supposed to be our governor. Is supposed to defend the D.C. National Guard from losing its capability to support and defend the capital of the
I
United States.
just don't get what throwing certain
That
people
has
under
been
the bus is
neglected
going to
for
do.
decades.
And
And it
Flynn and
needs to
Trump are
change. The D.C. National Guard should be the elite unit that
bosom
that
buddies.
it was designed to be under President Thomas Jefferson. It is responsible for the seat of democracy. It's not responsible for a state,
Why are you throwing
a
Charles Flynn
territory.
under the
It's
bus?
responsible for a
Doesn't make
city.
any
It
sense
is
to
the
me.
only guard that is responsible for a city. It just happens to be the capital of the most powerful nation in the world. And I think that's significant. And if that change does not come, if this happens again, and unfortunately in our political environment, I think there's a chance.
Well, and I appreciate that response, and I'm almost out of time. I would simply say this, that I also think leading up to January 6th, recognizing the tumult, recognizing the challenges, from the President to the Secretary of Defense to the Secretary of the Army, there should have been a lot of work in preparation for, not on that day, but in the weeks, months leading up to make sure the lines of communication were set and that there was a series of protocols that would be followed if and when things happened, and that clearly didn't happen as well. But again, gentlemen, appreciate all of your, not only testimony and for being here today, but your long service and support of the United States. Thank you. I yield back.
The gentleman yields. Now recognize the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Griffith, for 5 minutes.
So I submit to you, gentlemen, that if the President of the United States had gone outside the chain of command and called General Walker directly, bypassing his acting Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of the Army, we might very well be in a hearing trying to find out why the President was interfering with the National Guard. Would you agree with that, Commander Sergeant Major?
I think that would have been a highly irregular.
It would have been highly irregular, Colonel.
Sir?
Yes, sir.
You gotta keep in mind, during that time, they were talking about the president improperly using the military, and they wanted to take precautions against that use. So they wanted to have it both ways, to say he didn't call, but if he would have called, they would have said he was trying to interfere with the chain of command. So,
That's exactly what I was hearing, and I just wanted to make sure we had it on the record. I put on the record previously in my previous line of questions that all of you were there with Major General William Walker from 1:49 p.m. through 5:55 p.m. During that time period, we've already established that he didn't receive any calls from Secretary McCarthy, but did he try to reach out to Secretary McCarthy during that time frame? Did you all witness any attempts by him to reach out?
Yes.
Not that I'm saying it's his duty, I'm just asking for facts.
you want to go?
Captain?
Yes, sir. I witnessed General Walker attempting to reach out to the Secretary's office multiple times.
Multiple times?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sir.
Yes, sir. Colonel?
In fairness to Secretary McCarthy, and I wrote a memo and I said he was incommunicado, and I wasn't taking a shot at him there. I was saying the Pentagon is a big building, cell phones don't work. If you're in a skiff in the Pentagon, you're not going to be reachable by cell phone. And if he's in a skiff with the chairman or with the Secretary of the Defense, it's reasonable he would not be able to be reached except through his front office, and the 8 goes back and relays information. So I gave Secretary McCarthy the benefit of the doubt there.
And I appreciate that, and appreciate you bringing, look, we're just trying to get the facts.
Yeah.
Brigadier General, my understanding is that you would have been second in command behind Major General Walker, is that correct?
That is correct.
And if for some reason, because we heard earlier that as a part of the DOD IG report that that there were attempts to reach General Walker, which you all said didn't happen. But let's assume for the sake of argument that they couldn't reach him for some unknown reason. Wouldn't the proper move then have been to call you in this case of an emergency where orders have been given to activate the National Guard?
That is correct.
And it's interesting because the report says, and I'm not a military man, so y'all bear with me. I may be asking something that y'all all know and I don't. And that is that the Major General Walker indicated that he had called to initiate movement. Now, I understand there wasn't a call, but what does initiate movement mean? Does that mean to get to go lend assistance? What exactly does that mean, Brigadier General Dean?
Initiate movement means that you actually give the order for a force to move. So in this case, it would have been our QRF or any force that was qualified to do civil disturbance. You giving them the
So
order.
that would have been the order to head to the Capitol
That
and
would have been
lend
the order to
assistance?
move, yes.
Okay. I mean, that's why I asked. I wanted to know. And Captain Nick, I think this is in the record, but let's just get it out there again. What time did the D.C. National Guard learn that they were authorized to deploy to the Capitol?
I wrote down in my notes 5:09 p.m., which was relayed from General McConnville on a secure video teleconferencing line in our office.
5:09 p.m. Now, they've asked if the president, the questions from the other side indicated the president, if there wasn't any action, should have jumped the chain of command and called General Walker. But if you are Pyatt or Flynn, and you knew that there was supposed to be a deployment or initiate the move, wouldn't you have reached out to somebody if you couldn't get a hold of Walker? And I understand they were on the call the whole time, but wouldn't they have been able to properly call Brigadier General Dean?
Jim.
I'll let anybody answer, but
Yes, sir.
yes, sir. Sergeant.
Yes, sir. I
Sergeant Major.
think we miss a key point in all of this conversation when we're talking about who and what, when we go back to the significant fact that the only reason why we are here today is because Secretary McCarthy, in his approval letter, removed Major General's ability
This is like a
to
major burn
execute
book.
his immediate response authority.
Sir, please.
Secretary
stop
McCarthy
spitting into
changed the
microphone.
memo from Secretary of Defense to the Secretary of the Army. The one that we got from Secretary McCarthy stated that Major General Walker could not deploy the QRF without the Secretary of the Army's explicit order.
And, I will just clarify, the term immediate response authority is probably used incorrectly in this instance.
Emergency response.
Yeah, so, but, correct. Yeah.
And
I just
when
wanna be
was
clear, 'cause, you know.
and when was that memo or order given to not do anything without the direct call from the Secretary of the Army?
January 5th or 4th, I think the memo's that. signed
Several
the
days
5th.
before January 6th.
5th, sir, yes, sir.
All right. I appreciate your questions. I appreciate you all. Thank you very much for your courage to be here today. I know that it's got to put you all under a lot of stress. I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Now recognize the gentleman from New York, Mr. D'Esposito, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sergeant Major Brooks, at the time you were the most senior non-commissioned officer in the organization. Can you share briefly what was happening at the D.C. Armory between 3 p.m. and 5 p.m. on January 6th?
Immediately upon receiving the 149 call from Chief Son, we, the DC National Guard, on our own accord, initiated movement from the QRF from Air Force, Andrews Air Force Base to the Armory, so they were there. We were then taking the soldiers that were coming in for the second shift that were already at the Armory. We had geared them, fully kitted them with riot control gear. We had moved our transportation onto the Armory drill floor so that not to arouse any public awareness of what was actually going on, and they were loaded and standing by, ready to go. They had been divided up into civil disturbance platoons, roughly 40 to 45 people per platoon with appropriate leadership, which coincidentally matches the MPD force structure for civil disturbance as well, because as
I know,
we've
this
stated
could be
previously, we
triggering.
trained
I
with
should
them,
put
so
a
we wanted to
little
be as close to
warning on it, frankly.
their force package as possible.
Right, you train with them to do the work that you're prepared to do, which is exactly the opposite of what so-called leadership was telling you your mission was.
Yes, but I think they like to say this untrained, and they point to us conducting him training, and some soldiers or airmen may have had their first experience of training. The Army and Air Force get brand new privates and airmen every day. They are assimilated into the formation and trained and trust that their leaderships have their best interest and would not put them in a situation that they were not prepared for. Right. I believe that our leadership, all the way down the chain, prepared our soldiers and airmen as best as possible to perform the mission that they were given.
So on January 6th, between 3 p.m. and 5 p.m., they were trained, they were prepared, and they were ready to respond?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Brigadier General Dean, according to his testimony to the DOD, Secretary McCarthy told to General Walker to, quote, posture his troops and, quote, get ready to go on the 2:30 call. Is that accurate?
That is not accurate.
Okay.
There was no mention, well, first of all, Secretary McCarthy wasn't even on the call. I'll say this, he wasn't identified on the call, nor did he speak on the call.
Understood. Colonel Matthews,
Yes, sir.
if I leave anything out here, please correct me. You were acting general counsel to the Army.
Yes, sir.
You were principal deputy general counsel.
Correct.
You were deputy ledge counsel to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs.
Chief legal counsel. Yes, sir.
Okay. You were special counsel to the director of national intelligence.
Was.
You served this country faithfully in combat in both
I
Iraq
know,
and
Kate,
Afghanistan.
but it was a good reminder for me.
You're a Nova grad.
Yes, sir.
All right. And you're a Harvard Law grad.
Don't hold it against me.
Pretty well accomplished. Let me ask you a question. You have 1 minute and 40 seconds, sir.
Yes, sir.
You were in charge on January 6th. Tell me your plan and what you would have done differently.
In charge of the D.C. Guard, the Army, the what, or what?
You could have made any decision necessary in order to keep this place safe.
I would have picked up the phone and told the D.C. Guard to deploy to the Capitol immediately, and I would have told General Walker to have everyone in the building kitted up in riot gear and get down to support the Capitol Police. And but I will say this, sir. At 3:04, Secretary Miller did give the Army authorization to go to the Hill. That was not conveyed to General Walker. So that authorization had been given. Secretary Miller had all the authority he needed. He didn't need to hear from the president. The president had given him the authority he needed to act. I would argue he had that authority even without talking to the president based on the executive order. So I mean, I think that
That's an interesting
it was a bottleneck, and it wasn't at the D.C. Guard level, and it wasn't at the
piece of
OSD level. In my opinion.
testimony.
Well, I guess, again, the goal here today was to make sure that we are better prepared next time. Brigadier, I'm sorry, Brigadier General, you have one?
So, yeah, can I answer that just real quick? So, to me, what I would have done if I was in a position over at the Pentagon, I would have, or if I was the secretary, I would have given General Walker more latitude. I wouldn't have written a memo so constraining that it would take one person to, mobilize the D.C. National Guard.
Well, that was clearly done by design.
Right. And secondly, what I would have done, I would have given him the authorization to deploy if there was a threat to life or limb. And then I would have said, when you get there, then give me a call and we'll discuss how the D.C. National Guard is actually going to be deployed. And
Well,
that's the con op.
My time's expired. I want to thank you all for your service to this great country. And thank you. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
The gentleman yields. I've just got some closing questions, and then we will adjourn after that. I just want to do a quick review before I ask these last couple of questions. From the information that we obtained from the Select Committee on January 6th, transcribed interviews, logs from DOD officials, we have a timeline of the authorization process of the National Guard. We know on January 3rd that President Trump ordered that the Guard be readied for potential deployment based on intelligence that had been received. As I mentioned earlier, Secretary Miller did testify to the Select Committee. He had full authorization to deploy the National Guard on January 6th, did not need any additional
Picture
authority
Chris Miller
from
joining
the
like some
President of the
hippie
United
commune
States.
or something.
There was a breakdown.
Like he's probably
in
at
an order.
Coachella right now.
Secretary Miller testified that he gave an order
Covered in
to
mud and
deploy
body paint.
the National Guard to the Capitol. Somewhere there was a breakdown in that order, whether it was communication or a delay.
Girl, I think about it every day.
If General Walker were
really
to give
think
you
about
a
it too
direct
much.
order, you lawfully and according to your oath, same oath I took when I joined the military, you were obligated to carry out that lawful order. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Any moral, legal authority order given is my responsibility to carry out. Yes, sir.
If you did not carry out that order, would that be considered dereliction of duty?
Absolutely, and General Walker could take action against me. Yes, sir.
Do you feel that there was dereliction of duty in the chain of command on January 6th?
Not within the D.C. National Guard, sir, but from higher levels, yes, sir. I do believe that senior officials within the Secretary of the Army and senior officials in the Army staff were derelict in relaying the authorization from Secretary Miller down to the appropriate level of execution, which would have been Major General Walker's rank.
Okay. Hey, I know that's hard. It's a difficult question, and I apologize for that. But to get to the truth, we need to know what really happened. Another, while we're here, and this is open to anyone that can answer this appropriately, and maybe I'll direct it to General Dean to start with. Secretary McCarthy claims that he was making a tactical level CONOP plan at the MPD headquarters. Did you ever see this plan?
Not only did I not see the plan, he was at the wrong agency. So the lead federal agency for this particular event was the Capitol Police.
Right.
So my question is why are you at the MPD headquarters and not at Capitol Police? Because the Capitol Police has responsibility for the security of the Capitol.
Okay, that was my follow-up question, because the deployment was to the Capitol. So did General Walker ever
Invoke
discuss
Sund.
a plan?
Are we getting to
with,
Pelosi? Is that where we're
anyone?
going with this?
Okay.
Just going all the way back to
Or
Bill
I'm
Nance?
sorry, whoever.
I was gonna
Was
say-
that you? Okay, I'm sorry, Colonel.
Yes, sir. If the plan was get your riot gear on and get on the bus and go support Chief Stephen's son at the Capitol. Take orders from any white shirt or senior officer in the Capitol Police Department. That was the plan. That's what we did. That's what we eventually did.
Okay, so, and we have Chief Sund here. Thank you for attending today, Chief, and for your service. Once the National Guard deploys, you become under the authority of the U.S. Capitol
Wait,
Police. You're
what?
sworn in then, right? You're officers of the U.S. Capitol
Hey,
Police.
what?
So your operation plan, in reality, I guess, is get from here to there, get sworn in, and do whatever Chief
Yeah,
Sund
I'm still
tells you.
not
Is that
sure
a
why
good
that
summary
didn't
of it?
happen,
All
Jim.
for order, sir. So the D.C. Guard never acts independently. We always take direction from civil authority.
I'm also
We work for
curious
somebody,
why Chris Ray still has a
in the civilian
job.
side. So we would have taken direction from, that's what we did during the summer of 2020. We worked for the MPD all over the city, responding to riots in the city, or for the Secret Service Police or Park Police.
Okay, so just make sure I understand, there was a discussion of an
Hey,
op plan, very
Bob's big
simple
boy,
op plan,
there's no
get on the
coffee
bus, get
allowed
to the
in the
Capitol,
fucking
get sworn in, and
committee
get to
room.
work.
Get the fuck out of here.
Instead of
that committee
really an op
chamber.
plan that you need, is that what
No.
you're saying?
I
Sir
think
Brooks?
You know, born in a
Yes,
barn.
Due to our normal planning operations, we already had a rally point identified for the soldiers who are on traffic control points within the city. All we had to do was communicate to those service members to rally at that point, don your riot gear. Everyone else at the armory would have been donning their riot gear and moving towards their direction. Exactly as Colonel Matthews mentioned, once we arrived, we fall under, it's called defense support to civil authorities. Once we arrive, we fall under we are supporting the civil authority. In this case, the Capitol Police would have given us direction on where to be and what to do.
Okay, thank you. This is my last question, and again, General Dean, I'll start with you since you were the senior member that would have been there at the time. The order that finally came at 5, what time was it again?
5:09.
Captain Nick, 5:09?
Correct, I wrote 509 down in
Okay.
my wheel book.
General Dean, at 5:09, did Secretary McCarthy give
little
General
crook?
Walker the order at that
Just
time?
kidding.
If not, can you
I think he said
explain how
real. I
you
have no
got the
idea.
order?
My understanding is that General McConville actually gave the order, but he said he received it from Secretary McCarthy. And General Walker in turn told me, and I in turn told the Quick Response Force, it's time to move.
Okay.
Sir,
Anybody else?
Sir, I was sitting right next to General Walker in the conference room in the BTC when General McConville was not in the chain of command, so it wasn't his order. He was conveying an order that we were authorized to go, and I was told that it came from not from Secretary McCarthy, but from Secretary Miller, that we had the authorization to go. That's what I was told at the time. And so this claim that Secretary McCarthy called General Walker obviously was not true, because as Secretary McCarthy has stated, it was not true. He did not call General Walker. And the way we got it was relayed via VTC, a video teleconference.
Okay, so somebody called you up on video teleconference to give you that order
Oh,
then?
no.
or-
The conference was ongoing, it was running, and General McConville, Chief of Staff of the Army, happened to be on the conference talking to us, and he mentioned that we had the authorization to go.
Okay, so he just was like, what are y'all doing still here? You're supposed to go? Or?
No, he claims that, but that's not what happened, sir.
Okay.
Someone in the back of the room said, "Oh, these guys are good to go now. You're good to go." He said, "We're good to go." He claimed later that he asked General Walker, why are you still here? You already have the authority. That was not the case. General Walker did not, he implied that Walker had the authority 1635 from McCarthy. He was just hanging out on the VTC while twiddling his thumbs while the city was
Okay.
in the right condition.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, absolutely.
Can I add that it all doesn't make sense if you follow this through the chain, because if Major General Walker had been told numerous times, had been given a lawful order to do something, why was there never an action taken against Major General Walker for dereliction of duty or refusing a lawful order? There never was. There was never even an inkling of charging him with anything. So that whole narrative that we were just sitting around waiting is false. And it's disrespectful to the men and women that did that job to think that we just sat and waited while the Capitol was under attack.
Sir, may I point out, Walker told me that he wanted to send him anyway
Matthews
and
on
resign.
something.
And I asked him not to do that. I
Unless
said, sir, don't do that. Wait for
I've
the
never
order.
seen him
He actually
interviewed
told me
before.
the same thing. So he said,
This
he
is
asked me, he said,
insane.
should I send them? Should I send them? Should I send them? I'm going to send them. I said, don't send them. You didn't get the order. It's in writing that you can't send them. Don't send them.
Okay. I want to thank you all. I would,
Louder.
okay, I'll do these and I'll recognize you for that. Do want to enter for the record a memorandum from the Secretary of the Army dated January
do
4th,
mine
2021, and is the employment guidance for the District of Columbia National Guard. Also, letter from the Secretary of the Army to Major General William Walker, dated January 1, 2021, recommending approval of the request of Mr. Christopher Rodriguez, Director of District Columbia Homeland Security Emergency Management, on behalf of, this is support of the civil authorities of District
turn
of
your
Columbia.
fucking cell phone off.
Without objection, so entered. I recognize the ranking member.
Thank you, Chairman. I have a few items I'd like to enter to the record.
Susan just got a bumble match.
Thank you, and I want to also acknowledge and say thank you to everyone that is here today. We know that the chaos at the Pentagon was caused by the Commander-in-Chief and the fear that he would involve the military in domestic political affairs. I want to enter into the record the following articles. A political article entitled, "Trump Could Have Helped Response to the January 6th Riot, but Didn't," per new testimony.
Without objection.
A letter dated December 30th, 2022, and posted on the Select Committee website from the Select Committee to the General Counsel of the Department of Homeland Security related to the disposition of interview transcripts. Pages 99 to 101 of Acting Secretary of Defense Christopher Miller's interview with the Select Committee, an article from PolitiFact in which it declares the claim that the January 6th committee suppressed testimony from Anthony Ornado that proves former President Donald Trump pushed for 10,000 National Guard troops at the Capitol. A CNN article entitled, "Trump's Defense Secretary Denies That There Were Orders to Have 10,000 Troops Ready to Deploy on January 6th. A Washington Post article entitled, "The False GOP Claim That Pelosi Turned Down National Guard Before January 6th Attack." An email from Mark Meadows to John Akoff dated January 5th, 2021, in which he says that the National Guard will be activated so they can protect pro-Trump people. Appendix 2 of the Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack final report, and summaries of the many Capitol Police Inspector General reports requested by Democratic leadership of this committee last Congress.
Without objection.
Thank you.
Again, I'd like to thank each of our witnesses, the whistleblowers, for coming forward to share their story. Again, for anyone who is watching who wishes to share their story with my subcommittee, please do not hesitate to reach out at cha.house.gov/whistleblower-support.
Oh, yeah,
To our
that's-
whistleblowers,
rolls right
members
off
of
the
our
tongue.
committee may have
You
additional
couldn't do a
questions
Bitly
for
for
you,
that?
and we ask that you respond to those questions in writing. Without objection, each member will have 5 legislative days to insert additional material into the record or to revise and
He
extend
said
their remarks.
insert.
If there is no further business, I thank the members for their participation. And without objection, this subcommittee stands adjourned.
Any outbursts, anybody? Oh, okay, all right, no, there's no outbursts. Wow. Wow. Hold on, let me go here. Wow. Wow. Oh man, come on. Give me, what the fuck. Give me my mouse. Hey, give me my, no! Okay, sorry, hold on. Just a minute, folks. Everybody calm down. Something's wrong with the mouse. Okay, listen. Damn it. Damn it, Janet. What's my... Everybody... You know what I don't like about PCs? They have, like, weird... like, malfunctions. You know what I'm saying? They have the strange malfunctions, if you will. Like, I can't even tell what it is gonna fucking click on. Go back! Oh, fucking bitch. Bitch. Ah, all my bitches is raw. All my bitches is crazy. Oh my God, show me where my mouse is. Do. There we go. Jesus Christ on a cracker. Christ on a cracker. As my old mother would say. Oops. I want to stop you from showing everybody what you do. Alright, fine. Let it sit there. Anyway, I, thanks to Gal, I pulled up the Charles Flynn, whatchamacallit. Let me see if it'll let me show you. Oh, yeah. Well, anyway, so, I'm not going to read it right now. Are you going to do the Mayorkas impeachment? Oh, in 30 minutes? Oh. Here's the issue, unfortunately. I have a bandwidth issue because I share the internet here with a person who works in the film industry. And those people, those film people, they eat up bandwidth like a mother effer. And the uploads and the downloads and the this, that, and the graphics, they're just like sharks. They just swim without regard. So it's difficult actually for me to now stream during the prime time, if you will. So I unfortunately I don't think I'm going to be streaming it, which makes me very, very sad. But I want to encourage everyone to watch it. Thank you, Teresa. And also, I think I will come back later tonight in the early evening to, yeah, they're parasites. You know, they're right about Hollywood. They're freaking parasites. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, she has done somersaults to try and, like, I don't even know what she's done, but she's been trying to do different things to make it work, but it's just not going to work. Oh, no, I know that was... Oh, really? That was from earlier? God, something swelled. So maybe we're starting to get into the danger zone. Do, flying in the danger zone. Do, higher to the danger zone. Yeah, but it was still funny. Yeah. Next week, Hollywood really does. Oh, I see. Hollywood really does use adrenochrome. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding, Internet. They don't. I don't even know what it is. I think babies are cute. I would never want to hurt a baby. So, don't... What's the weather? Oh, it is gorgeous. It is bourgeois today. Let me tell you. Let me give you a weather report. Actually, that's a great idea. Let me give you a weather report. Hold on just a minute. I gotta figure out what my fucking phone... Oh, here we go. Well, right now it's 63 degrees. It is whatever time. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. 63 beautiful degrees. Not a real cloudless sky. It's kind of got like that little filmy cloud cover. Very filmy, though. Bright, bright, bright sun. Beautiful sun. And here we go. Oh, here we go. Here we go. So today the high is going to be 78. On Thursday, the high will be 74. But then it drops way, way down on Friday, where the high will be 69. I'm not kidding. It actually will be. I only got it when I read it. Oh shit. Oh my god. Well, I personally would do layers, and I would do, pants for the, at night I wear longer pants. But sometimes I wear shorts with just something on top so that I'm not feeling like, like I can be warm as long as my top is covered. You know what I'm saying? So like I have maybe a different J-Ritz. Well, anyway, to continue, on Friday the high will be 73. On Saturday the high will be 77. And you know what Saturday? Oh, no, shit. I fucked that up. Yeah, Saturday will be 73. Fuck, man, sorry. Saturday will be 73. Sunday will be 77. So decent. Let me see if there's like zero chance of rain. Maybe a little tiny chance of... No, there's nothing. There's no rain in the forecast. The lows at night are not as exciting. 56... Tonight, 56. Tomorrow night, 55. Friday night, 52, because, 69. And 56. What do you think, holy fuck? Come on now. Would I disappoint you like that? The low on Sunday is going to be 51. Oof. Oofta. On Saturday, the low is going to be 56. So, yeah, jackets. Definitely a jacket. Jacket. Le jacket. Oh, I'm so high. Let me tell you. Can I do a little, what weirdos? I do. Well, of course I am. I can do that. I came from Northern California. Northern California. We have roaches everywhere on the ground at night when it's hot. Really? Oh my God. See, that, I know where you are, Jen, and that can be a hellscape during certain times of the year. As beautiful as it is, it can be a hellscape. I am definitely one of those weirdos, though. Come on now. Come on. Okay, let me do an ad for the weed that I'm smoking. So I got these. Okay, get ready for it. Okay, hold on to your shorts. I got these disposable vapes from my favorite provider here in Los Angeles, Kushfly, KUSHFLY.com. Not only are they the nicest, not only do they have the best prices in Southern California, I think I can say that really pretty confidently now, having done Orange County. Did you watch any of the Crackhead Barney? No, I didn't. Is it the one in New York? Is it from yesterday, Jim, or from today? I haven't really been on YouTube a lot this morning. So that might be the problem, because I've been on for 2.5 hours. But, oh wait, what was I saying? Shoot. Oh shit. Now I can't remember what I was saying. That's my fault. It's not your fault, Jim. It's just my fault. Yeah. I find that down here, it is cold in the mornings, nice in the, late morning to afternoon, cold in the evenings. But not, not impossible. Yeah, look ridiculous. Oh, wait, let me see. Anyway, but programming-wise, let me tell you what's going to happen. Programming-wise, I wouldn't mind reading some of this Charles Flynn shit, but I would probably do it a little bit later in the day. And my commercial. Oh, my commercial, yeah. All right, okay, here we go. Yeah, exactly. It turns out that, but okay, I'm going to go back to that. Wait, I want to try and, hold on, let me just do this. Hold on, man. Hold on, man. Hey, man, hold on. Oh, hang on, Sloopy. Sloopy, hang on. Mm-hmm. 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 Hang on, Sloopy. That was the dumbest. I watched a little bit. I didn't watch, the whole fucking, thing. Wait, hold on. Let me get that. Wait, is that? No, that's not it. What are you doing? Okay, fine. I have to, hold on. I'm so sorry. I'm a nerd. I'm a nerd. Okay, I don't know. That probably was not a great idea. Oh, yeah, it wasn't. Hold on. Just hang in there. Hang in there. I don't think that's what I wanted. Okay, well, anyway. Well, please hit the link that Gal shared and look at that. Okay, my commercial. Gosh, thank you, J. Rance. You're amazing. All right, so anyway, I got this. They have the best prices, but not only that, they have the incredibly most nicest people. And I have been with them now for almost 3 years. They will continue to cover up the crimes of J6 in order to protect. Yeah, totally. I guess that's what this is, holy fuck. I don't really know. I mean, it's really quite confusing. Seems like a little bit of noise instead of a signal, as someone would say. Okay, so anyway, I got these disposable vape pens yesterday or the day before, and I have to figure out what brand they are. Hold on, let me get one of them. I got 2 of them. I don't know what it's all the way over there. Okay, anyway. It's a dual. I should really figure it out. It's a dual thing. And the one I'm smoking is 2 hybrids. I have no idea how that works. But anyway, the point is these are 5-gram disposable vapes. I'll put a picture of them on my Twitter. 5 grams. 5 grams. Do you want to know what I spent for them? Now, granted, it sounds like a lot of money, but wait until I do the math, because I did it. I had to. I'm embarrassed about this, but I had to use a calculator. Okay, anyway, $70 per vape, which sounds like a lot of money, but when you divide 70 by 5, it's $14 a gram. That's an insanely low price. Oh, I have really good luck with certain brands. This one is quite good. And what it has in it, again, 2 hybrids. Oh man. One is Guava Rainbow. 5 gram, $14 a gram. That's the lowest price I think I've ever seen for something that, no, here's the best part. Let me do the mic drop. It's 93% THC. 93. And I've been using these distributors, these delivery for almost 3 years. And then the other side is Sunset Octane, which is a great name, actually. I'm so sorry they clog because and I know what you're talking about. Some brands are really not great in their design, or it's an operator error for me sometimes. You won't do vapes, but you love edibles. I think that's a great idea. Oh, you know what? I got a dab rig last year, an electric one, and I just haven't mastered like the usage and the maintenance. And I think I need there's an ability to put a weed flower burning container in the dab rig. So yeah, I was thinking about that too. I was thinking of getting a regular old bong. Just go total old school. Oh my God, do you know what they have at one of the head shops near me? Actually, you know what the head shop's name? Oh my God, I don't want to say it. I don't want to say it because then you'll find it and then you'll know all the boo-boo buttheads that don't already know where I live. Will know where I live. But anyway, in this head shop, there is a fucking rig that is a gas mask attached with a hose to a bong. What? I really want to get it. I'm going to ask the guy next time I go in there how much it is. I know it's ridiculous, but isn't this world ridiculous? Is it really that ridiculous when you stack it up against this world? I don't think so. All right. Well, let's, I'm going to release you now to the internet so we can all, unfortunately not collectively because my internet just can't handle it. And I don't want it to buffer. I really hate it when it buffers for everybody. I feel like that is the most frustrating experience you can have as a viewer, and I just don't want to create that experience for you. I really don't. I want you to know I truly feel bad when I start to see that and dropped frames and ugh. So I'm really, really sorry about that. And hopefully if I schedule things a little differently, we can work around each other. But yeah, so I'll try and come on a little bit later when it's downer time, and do the other thing. Do that thing. And then the next time I'll see you, I think, is the lounge on Friday. So be sure to hit the notification on that. Oh, really? I would like to play golf, Jim. I used to play golf with my dad and my brothers and my sisters. Had a great golf game in Hawaii once with my sisters. Wow, I'll never forget that. That was really amazing. Because my oldest sister passed away after that. A while after that, so not immediately. But it was really an amazing time that we had, the four sisters together. I still have a picture of us at the golf course. Drunk as skunks, because I was still drinking at that point, but having the time of our lives. Anyway, yeah, what cannabis doesn't do is help an already addled mind. Necessarily. Maybe it does. Or maybe it just puts it in the right direction. I have no idea. Yeah, so please hit a notification and hit the solid bell on notifications for the channel so that you get all however the notifications come through. I think they come through an email, which is ridiculous actually to me. I don't know who in the world can possibly monitor their email in addition to all the other incoming that they have. But, thank you for doing it when you do it. Or hit a notification for the lounge itself, which is up on the channel. So it should be a good one. It should be really interesting. I think it'll be really fun. We'll see. I don't know. You never know on Lolo's Lounge what's gonna happen next. That's the Lolo's Lounge Blues. I don't know what's gonna happen next. What's gonna happen next? Anyway, all right. I will see y'all later. Have a wonderful Wednesday. And for those where Wednesday is a great and special day, I hope it is especially great and special for all concerned. And for all concerned here, I truly wish that you have a wonderful day. And I will see you Friday. See you on Friday. All right. Bye. Hi, give me coffee. You too, holy fuck. Wah, 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 wah. I like this way better. Bye. I'll see you soon. Whoops, wrong. Friday. Doodly doot doot doot. Scoobly doot 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 scoop. Scoop scoop. Scoobly doot doot. Scoop. Scoobly doot doot. Diddly did did. Scoop. Scoop. Scoop scoop. Shaggy do. Shaggy too. Yeah, and the mystery bus. Don't get on the mystery bus. Yeah. I should really learn this song, shouldn't I? Oh my god, if you could see Gus right now, he's splayed out on his back. Sleep, snoring. Da 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 da. Anyway, I sure thank you for coming today. I hope your rest of your day is the greatest in the entire world.